When I got to the next beautiful spot in my rental car, my mother-in-law called. As if she had been there the whole time, it was my wife's mom. Then I asked, "Hello, Mrs. Johnson, what's up?" With a knowing look at my husband David. On the other end, her voice was crazy. "Leave David alone right now. Get your clothes in a bag and go to the bus stop by the rocks." "Tell me what you're talking about, Mrs. Johnson. David is going to hit you. He's hiding a gun in the car." That's the game she was following. I can't believe David would. "Okay, I'll leave right away." Even though my answer was a little flat, it seemed to have persuaded her. She hung up right away. "My name is Emily Johnson, and I'm 29 years old. I work in an office. David and I got married last year, but because of the COVID outbreak, we only recorded our marriage. Because we've been able to travel since the plague is over, we're planning our late vacation. Our bosses were flexible and let us take time off for our vacation. We picked a national park because we wanted to take lots of pictures, even though we haven't been married in a while. David likes to edit videos for fun, while I like to take pictures of landscapes. We've even talked about making a YouTube account just for landscape movies. Since we got married, our life has been quiet but happy, but there has been one worry. Mrs. Johnson, David's mom. Her son David has always made her happy. Whenever David and I talked about getting married, she always seemed to be against me. Her sneaky advances against me in meetings happen all the time, and what's worse is that she does them without David knowing. Insidiously, she would disparage me whenever I received compliments or expressed myself during a family gathering. "Emily, did you make the stew? There's no one else like this dish around here, but it tastes good. That tastes really good. Could you tell me how to make the stew? I'd like to make it at home if it's easy. Did you enjoy it? I'm happy. I'm going to write down the recipe right now." "That's fine, Emily, but you might also want to learn some local recipes. It will make people praise you more." It works like that most of the time. She is not complimenting my one-of-a-kind stew. Instead, she is telling me to stick to the traditional recipes and not stand out. In fact, there was a lot of snark when the family left and Mrs. Johnson and I were doing the dishes alone. A frightening woman who was always striving to stand out by preparing such a salty stew and intended to give our family hypertension or something. I took a bite. "Was it too salty for you? Next time, I'll use less salt. I no longer even want to eat your salty stew. Next time, do something more traditional." But when David comes around, she acts much differently. Uncle John told Emily, "Thanks for the stew recipe. Your dish seemed to be a hit with everyone." "Really then? That's wonderful. What do you want to eat tomorrow?" "David, Emily, and I are going to make it together." She would smile and smile her way into our talk. To change the subject, it's so obvious that it's hard to be mad about it. After that, it became kind of a joke for us. The funny part is that David already knows about her double-dealing and sly jabs. I'm always in trouble with Mrs. Johnson when her son isn't around because she thinks he doesn't see. But David, my husband, already knows her and even films or records her in secret when things get too bad. David has never liked how his mother's love is too much, which is really just too much meddling. It seems to have even crushed his hopes for the future. So when we got married, David, not me, said we couldn't live together. Even though it was a happy event, Mrs. Johnson seems to believe that I was the one who lied to him. She can't see anything around her because she loves her son too much. I'm afraid she'll do something stupid soon. Another thing is that we finally chose the details for our late trip. With our interests in mind, we chose a trip through some of the country's most beautiful spots. I'm happily getting cameras and other tools ready. David is also getting a smartphone to record movies that doesn't have a SIM card. That's why we packed a bag with clothes and toiletries. On this trip, we'll be able to see mountains and drops. I want to take beautiful pictures, so we need to check the weather forecast too. That's right. Misty and beautiful landscapes are hard to describe, but I really hope it's sunny today. As we continued to get ready, we laughed together. But Mrs. Johnson still gets in the way, even now. That was a call. Like I said, it's Mrs. Johnson. Hello, I said when I picked up the phone in front of David. I quickly put it on speakers. Hi, Kate, Emily. Are you really going to go on the trip with David? You've been married for more than a year, and now you're taking a honeymoon? What do you think? It looks like she doesn't want me to go on vacation with my husband. To deal with this, the best thing to do is show off your trip. Well, we finally don't have to follow any rules. David's business and mine have both agreed to let us take time off for our vacation, which we're going to make the most of. She took my bait and became my wife. What do you mean, have fun? It's probably just a bad trip and a cheap hotel. I feel bad for David. The things Mrs. Johnson said made David frown and keep quiet. David was the one who planned this trip, not a travel agency. I changed how I spoke after seeing David's face. No, it's not a cheap hotel at all. David set everything up. We're staying at a very fancy hotel with a great view. The food is also 5 stars, but the prices are very low. I spoke nicely on purpose to make Mrs. Johnson angry. I'm always getting picked on, and this time she was making fun of the trip that David planned. A really high-end hotel. Why do you want to go with David? I want to go on that trip. David would want to show me how thankful he is for his family. After hearing about the very fancy hotel, she couldn't keep quiet. Now she's saying she wants to go on the trip herself. This is not the kind of honeymoon that a mother would crash. It's not going to happen. It's rude to step in on your son and daughter-in-law's long-awaited vacation. We'll make sure you have a souvenir. Saying goodbye, I hung up the phone, picturing Mrs. Johnson's angry face. I laughed meanly, and when I hung up, David had his head held up in front of me. I'm sorry about my mom, Emily. She tried to ruin our holiday, which I can't believe. She probably just wanted to express her deep affection for her son, she explained. Don't be worried about it. There was a hint of worry in my voice as I smiled at David, because I was so angry at her. I beat her at her own game, but I might have failed. What would happen if Mrs. Johnson got really excited about our vacation and started bothering us? This fear of mine turned out to be right in the end. From that point on until the trip left, Mrs. Johnson didn't say a word, not even a call. I thought she would tell David bad things about me. That also didn't happen. Even though her quiet scared me, we went on our getaway as planned. David's choice of beautiful places worked out perfectly, and I was happy with the whole thing. It was the best in every way. The view, the services, the food, everything. That's why I told Mrs. Johnson how great it was. We even asked the hotel staff to take a shot of us having dinner together. David, I'm so full. Thank you so much for setting this all up, I said as I fell asleep on the hotel bed. It felt so soft and cozy on the bed. David, my husband, was very happy to see me rolling around in bed. He said, I'm glad you like it. Let's go to the spa after you've had a chance to rest. I'll look at the pictures and movies we took today while we wait. The health spa. What a wonderful place. David suddenly raised his voice. He had been opening his laptop and watching me enjoy the soft bed. I finally asked, what's going on here? When I heard something strange in David's voice, I got out of bed and looked at his computer. Our plan for today was to rent a car and get around. We parked the rental car and took pictures and movies at every beautiful place we went. In some places, you could see the rental car in the background. That wasn't a problem in and of itself, but there were times when a strange person, who looked like a small woman, was hanging out near the rental car. Even though we couldn't see her face, we thought the strange person was a small woman. The suspect was opening the car door every once in a while. Oh, look at this. Because we were only there for a short time, we didn't lock the car, David said in a low voice through the screen. I knew what kind of hat the suspicious person was wearing. Hey, this hat. Doesn't Mrs. Johnson have one like this? When I said, yes, Mrs. Johnson has a similar hat, David's face went pale. That's correct. This is my mom's hat. David and I looked at the computer screen with wide eyes. The person who seemed sketchy was putting something black into the rental car. They looked like Mrs. Johnson. She looked like she was taking something out of the trip bag that she had left in the rental car. Then, after some time, the strange person left without taking anything. Something was put in the bag for the trip. I quickly threw it out. It had a strange weight to it. I didn't notice the change in weight because the bellman carried it for us when we got to the hotel. It was a bag with clothes and toiletries in it, but nothing important. It looked like nothing was stolen. After that, a strange thing came out of the bottom of the bag. What came out shocked David and me. What is this? You're kidding me. We were both very tired when we left the hotel the next morning. Because of the amazing thing that came out of the bag the day before, we were very busy. The phone almost always rang at the exact moment we got to the next beautiful spot in the rental car. It came from Mrs. Johnson. David was on the phone, so I told him to pick up. Hello, Mrs. Johnson, what's going on? The person on the other end of the phone from Mrs. Johnson sounded very upset. Get away from my kid right now. Get the bag with extra clothes in it and go to the Cape's bus stop. How does she know there's a bus stop close to the Cape where we're on vacation? What about our luggage? How does she know about things like the bag with the extra clothes? She called at just the right time, so I think she's probably hiding and watching somewhere. There were a lot of confusing parts of the call, so I asked Mrs. Johnson for a reason. Tell me what you're talking about, Mrs. Johnson. David is getting ready to attack you? He has a gun hidden in the car. Oh, I see. That's the case. I pretended to follow Mrs. Johnson's lead. Even though I already knew everything, it's not possible. David is hitting me. Okay, I get it. I'm leaving now. Even though my answer was a little stiff, I think I was able to trick Mrs. Johnson. Mrs. Johnson hung up right away. I waved to David, who was driving, and then took the bag and went to the bus stop. I didn't forget to act scared, of course. After that, I called the cops. After about 5 minutes, I got to the Cape's bus stop, where an investigator in an unmarked police car met me. Well, yesterday's prediction came true. The agent looked upset and said, I never thought you'd really call it in. I'm truly sorry that I took part in this joke. Please come with me. I think David should have caught Mrs. Johnson by now. As I drove back to the rental car, the investigator followed me in his plainclothes car. Yes, I could hear Mrs. Johnson's words from where we parked the rental car. Hey, David, how did you know where I was? It looked like Mrs. Johnson had no idea that her evil plan would be found out ahead of time. My husband found her hiding in the shade of a gazebo in the parking lot and caught her. Not right now. Today, I won't forgive you. Mrs. Johnson was scared by the way her husband looked like a demon. She was even more shocked when she saw me come back with the detective. As Mrs. Johnson had planned, I had a travel bag in my hand. The moment Mrs. Johnson saw it, she yelled, Officer, arrest that woman right away. There's a gun in that bag, she says. She wants to use it to kill my son. Mrs. Johnson yelled at me in that manner, displaying a proud expression as she did so. I stood still in front of Mrs. Johnson and dumped the bag's contents on the ground. The pants were wrapped up in a small bag so that the men wouldn't be able to see them. While Mrs. Johnson looked for something, she couldn't find it. What? Where is the gun? It should be there since I put it there yesterday. Is this the gun you are looking for? The detective showed Mrs. Johnson a picture. It was a picture of a hunting gun put in a plastic bag. Upon seeing the picture the detective showed, Mrs. Johnson's face went pale. That shooting gun belonged to my late father-in-law, didn't it? Honestly, how did you manage to open the gun safe? When I found it yesterday, I thought my heart would stop. I gave it to the cops right away after calling them. Mrs. Johnson clenched her teeth and looked down when she heard my voice and the voice of my husband. Oh, Emily is to blame because it was in her bag. It has nothing to do with me. Mrs. Johnson began yelling out of panic. My husband and I both let out big sighs. The officer then came up to Mrs. Johnson with a big smile on his face. Yes, we had to ask Emily about it since it was in her bag. Yesterday was supposed to be a holiday, but we questioned her for hours. Why did you know that Emily's gun was in her room bag? Even though the detective was happy, his voice was soft. I can see why he's mad. Besides, The shooting gun was taken out without permission, even though it wasn't trained. It was in Emily's bag, though. Because Mrs. Johnson couldn't face the detective, she desperately tried to explain herself. "Oh, so you saw Emily's travel preparations, but you and Emily's family are separated, aren't you?" "Of course, we're separated, and we haven't let her into our house for a year." When that was said, Mrs. Johnson yelled back, "Don't speak out of turn." The police officer pressed Mrs. Johnson even more. "Oh no, were you watching Emily's house?" "No, that's not a good thing to do. You need to go to the station with us." Mr. Johnson freaked out when she heard the detective's line, which sounded like it came straight from a police show. "No, I wasn't spying. So you can't take me against my will. I put that gun in there." "Oh," she told everyone on her own. "Well, I had already said it earlier when I turned the bag inside out." Before this, the detective had been happy, but now he wasn't. "All right, a confession. You'll be coming with us on your own because you broke the gun rule." Mrs. Johnson was shocked when the detective spoke. "What? Why? Didn't I say I wasn't spying?" When Mrs. Johnson spoke out against it, her son got very angry. "It makes sense, Mom. The gun your dad gave you was yours, but you don't have a shooting license." There would be no problem if the father-in-law, who had a shooting license, carried it properly for the right reason. You can't take it out of the gun safe because you don't have a shooting license. Mrs. Johnson didn't seem to know anything about gun rules or how to handle guns. I don't know how she got it this far without an accident, even though the live ammo was kept separate and not put into the gun. Even so, Mrs. Johnson still refused. But it had to be in that woman's bag when it was found at the hotel. "That woman took it from my house. I'm not to blame." His mother, Mrs. Johnson, was acting badly, so her son got angry. "I recorded yesterday when Mom put a gun in her rental car. Of course, I gave it to the cops." What David said made Mrs. Johnson weak in the knees. "What? How? How did you learn about it?" She was so angry that tears filled her eyes. "I told them instead of him. Yesterday, David was recording and got a shot of the parking lot. We didn't see it at the time, but we did see it when we watched the video at the hotel." Mrs. Johnson could no longer disagree with what I said. At this point, the officer told Mrs. Johnson, who was shocked, "Now, Mrs. Kate Johnson, we'd like you to come with us to the station because we think you broke gun laws." When David said those words, Mrs. Johnson's face turned sad. "Why, David? Why is that woman better than me? Are you leaving your mom?" The detective pushed Mrs. Johnson, who was yelling, into the empty police car. "You might not want to make a fuss. When I called the house yesterday to check the gun's serial number, your son's grandma, who I think is an old woman, was very angry. As soon as the agent said that, Mrs. Johnson calmed down. That grandmother is David's grandmother. She is old, but she is still healthy and doesn't show any signs of dementia. She's pretty much in charge of the Johnson family. At this point, Mrs. Johnson is completely giving in to her. She's the head of the family, but she's not mean to other people. When I go to see my in-laws, she's always so happy to see me and calls me Emily dear. She is nice, but Mrs. Johnson has to do her jobs the right way. Her own room and bathroom were taken care of by her. What made her so mad must have been pretty tough, I said under my breath. The detective told me, "It looks like your husband's grandmother has been keeping the shooting gun as a keepsake since your father-in-law died. But the other day, the box with the memory in it was broken into. When they found out that, it caused the current fuss. Her anger was unbearable." "I see. To get the key, Mrs. Johnson must have searched her whole room." I told her it's easy to see how angry she would be that her son's keepsake was broken. After handing over the rifle at the station, I asked to take a picture of it for her so she could at least keep a photograph as a memento. I said, "My husband's grandmother was mean to Mrs. Johnson. She had cried and said sorry to me and David. A family member who went to pick her up said that she yelled at Mrs. Johnson in a way that could be heard all over the neighborhood for more than 30 minutes. Oh, your grandmother really does get that mad. That's why Mom always did what Grandma said. Now everyone in the neighborhood knows what Mom did wrong," I said. Yes, thanks to his grandma's lecture, the incident became widely known, and Mrs. Johnson could no longer walk the streets. When his grandmother found out that David had broken up with her, she got permission from the police station and the prosecutor's office to send Mrs. Johnson to a farm run by a relative in the Nebraska mountains, in an area that looks like a basin. She could come back, but it would take 3 hours to get here by car. She was working so hard on the farm that she couldn't possibly get away. After some time, it turned out that I was pregnant. The family, my husband, and his grandma were all very happy. His grandmother was already excited about having a great-grandchild and started to work on making her legs stronger. My husband and her are going to fight to see who can take the baby for walks in the pram. I hope she doesn't drop the great-grandchild while holding it. She has also begun to improve the strength of her upper body. It's nice to see her getting her mood back. She was really down because of Mrs. Johnson's fuss. My husband and I are getting all of the baby stuff together today. I'd like to live with your grandmother if it's possible. She's really excited about it, and it looks like she'll live a long time following the birth, taking care of the child with grandma. I told them, we'll figure it out some way. Well, if she lives longer, I'll be happy to. My husband said, I'll talk to grandma about it. I took out the camera. I rubbed my belly and said, when the baby is born, I'm going to take lots of pictures of the baby, my husband, his grandmother, and the rest of the family.
Karen glared at me and snapped. Remember what happens if you defy the boss's wife. I can get your husband fired in no time. I won't obey you. And neither will my husband. My name is Caddy Donnelly. I'm a housewife in my 40s. I live with my husband Ronald and our 8-year-old daughter Emberly. This spring, Ronald got transferred to the headquarters, so our family moved along with him. We moved into the corporate housing. The company rents the entire apartment complex. It's a new place, and there are many things we need to get used to. But I can't rely on Ronald, who is going to be very busy right after his transfer. I have to handle most of the unpacking and settling in. After the movers finished their work, Emberly and I saw them off at the entrance. As we were heading back to our apartment, a few residents who seemed to notice our move were around, checking things out. I thought it was a good opportunity to introduce myself, so I greeted them lightly. Hello, my name is Caddy Donnelly. We just moved in today. Nice to meet you all. Then, one of the women among the residents walked up to me. Hello, nice to meet you too. I'm Karen Edison. So, did you move here because your husband got transferred? Yes, he started working at the headquarters this spring. Oh, I see. I'm kind of an expert here. Actually, my husband is the manager. If you need any help, feel free to ask me. Karen said with a smile. Karen had neatly applied heavy makeup and looked older than me. Her fashion was also quite unique. I thought I should tidy up our place a bit more before making proper introductions to everyone. Well, I'll come by to properly introduce myself later. Then Karen made a suggestion. Actually, we are having a tea party with the apartment ladies tomorrow. How about joining us, Caddy? Tomorrow? Yes, there's no need to worry. It's just a casual chat. I can introduce you to everyone in the corporate housing. Socializing in corporate housing is important. Then, I'll take you up on your offer and join. But is it okay to bring my child along? She doesn't have any friends here yet, so I can't leave her alone. Of course. I have a son, but unfortunately, he has a class tomorrow and can't join. But there are other moms with kids around the same age, so I'll introduce you to them. Is that so? Thank you very much. And so, right after moving in, we decided to join a tea party with the neighbors. At night, I told Ronald about the tea party. Ronald was pleased. I'm glad you'll be able to make acquaintances soon. She said there would be moms with kids around Emberly's age, so I planned to ask them about schools. That's good. I hope Emberly makes friends soon. The next day. The actual tea party was far from relaxing. Is this the initiation of corporate housing? The tea party was held in the common room, so I went there with Emberly. Several residents had already gathered. A mom with a child around Emberly's age also came. Hello, I'm Caddy, and we just moved into this corporate housing. This is my daughter, Emberly. I'm Keely Burke. My daughter, Carolina, will be starting 2nd grade this spring. Oh, she's in the same grade as my daughter. Is that so? If it's public school, they'll be in the same one. Yes, it's this school. Emberly is nervous about being the new kid. That's understandable. Carolina, Emberly is your age. Go play together. Okay. Carolina smiled and walked to the corner of the room with Emberly, where they started chatting away. I felt relieved seeing Emberly like that. I'm glad Carolina is the same age as her. Keely, as a fellow mom of a classmate, I may need your help from time to time, so I appreciate it in advance. I greeted Keely again. Keely replied, likewise, with a warm smile. It's a relief to have such a nice person in the same corporate housing. Just then, the room fell silent. What happened? Following everyone's gaze, I saw Karen standing there in a flashy blouse, looking angry. She was staring at me and Keely, biting her bright red lips. Keely's expression turned gloomy. Karen approached us with her heels clicking loudly. Karen. Hello. Hello, Caddy. By the way, Keely, have you already introduced yourself to Caddy? Huh? Yes. Oh, I was going to introduce you to Caddy myself. I mentioned it to Caddy yesterday, thinking her child was about the same age as Carolina. Yes, that's right. So, the kids have already met. Karen said while watching Emberly and Carolina getting along well. So, my role wasn't needed. I was hoping to connect you with Caddy and her child, but I guess it wasn't necessary. Feeling the heavy atmosphere, I couldn't help but say, but we are here today thanks to your invitation yesterday, Karen. Thank you so much. Karen seemed to be a bit appeased. That's good. Enjoy today. Karen smiled and walked away from us. Keely looked relieved. However, Karen's next words changed the atmosphere again. Oh? Who was in charge of snacks today? The room started to buzz. Wasn't it Keely's turn today? What? All the residents' eyes focused on Keely. I'm sorry. I've been so busy with the new school year preparations for the kids that I completely forgot. Keely apologized, and Karen responded, oh, we're all busy. But having a new member and starting off like this isn't great. What should we do? She smiled at Keely, but her eyes were not smiling at all. I'm really sorry. I'll go get something right now. Keely was about to rush out, so I hurriedly stopped her. Keely, wait. How about using these snacks if it's okay with you? I showed her the contents of the paper bag I had brought. Actually, I had brought some baked goods as a greeting for the new neighbors. Seeing Keely's confusion, I decided to check with Karen. Karen, how about using the snacks I brought for today? I intended to share them with everyone. Karen looked at me closely and said, well, that's thoughtful. What do you all think? Since Caddy suggested it, shall we? She glanced around, pressuring everyone. Then, sounds good. I agree. Voices of agreement arose, and the snack crisis was averted. The topics at the tea party were really trivial. Introduced by Karen, I quickly greeted everyone about the move. After that, it was all about which supermarket had the best deals or changes in the school teachers, just small talk. After about an hour, Karen said, "Shall we wrap it up for today?" And the tea party ended. Karen called out to me, "Caddy, how was it? Thank you for letting me join even though it was on short notice. Of course, we're going to be living in the same corporate housing. We should get along. See you later." And as she was leaving, she turned to Keely. "Keely, make sure to bring better snacks next time." She said this pointedly. While I was helping clean up the table, Keely came up to me. "Thanks so much for your help earlier. I really appreciated it." "No problem. I'm glad I could help." "How often do you have these tea parties? And is it always someone's turn to bring snacks?" "The tea parties are supposed to be monthly, but it really depends on Karen's mood. You know the bulletin board at the entrance? That's where the next event gets posted. And yes, we take turns bringing snacks. Since you helped me today, I'll be in charge next time." "I see. Do we have to attend every time?" "I didn't see anything about that in the corporate housing rules." "You're right. There's no strict rule about attending." Here, Keely lowered her voice and looked around nervously. "But if you don't show up, Karen will take notice." "Is Karen really that important in this corporate housing? Rumor has it that if you get on Karen's bad side, her husband might demote or transfer yours. So, everyone tries to stay on her good side for the sake of their families." "Wow! By the way, which department does your husband work in?" "I think he's in sales right now." "Oh, Karen's husband is the head of the sales department." "Really? Caddy, just be careful around Karen." That night, I told Ronald about what happened during the day. "Wow, there's a lot of politics even in corporate housing." "It seems so." "And Karen's husband is the head of the sales department." "Edison, the head of sales, huh?" "Yes, that's right." "Could it be that the work you were asked to do?" "Don't worry about my job." "How about you and Emberly? Are you making friends?" "Actually, yes. Emberly met a girl her age, and they seem to get along well. Her name is Carolina. And the one who told me about the corporate housing was Carolina's mom, Keely. I think Keely and I could be good friends." "That's good to hear." Soon after, the new school term started, and Emberly began going to school with Carolina. Since they were in the same class, they became even closer and started visiting each other's homes. Thanks to this, I also became closer to Keely. And I discovered something else after the new term began. Karen's child was also the same age as Emberly and Carolina and was in the same class. His name was Zeph, but Zeph was a bit of a problem. One day, Emberly came home with Carolina, who was crying. When I asked why, she told me it was because of Zeph. On their way home, Zeph came up behind them and said, "Hey, you two, walk behind me." But since they wanted to get home quickly, they didn't listen, and Zeph pushed Carolina from behind, making her fall. Zeph left without apologizing and ran ahead. Carolina's knee was scraped and bleeding. I immediately called Keely while disinfecting Carolina's wound and putting a bandage on it. I told Keely about what I heard from Emberly and said I was going to talk to Karen and Zeph. But Keely replied, Yeah, the injuries are not that serious, and it's just a kid's fight, so it's not a big deal." "But I heard Carolina got pushed, and if something happens, it could be serious. I think we should at least inform Karen." "That's true, but honestly, I don't want to draw attention to it. So, I'll leave it for today. Thanks for taking care of it. Carolina, let's go home." Healy said that and took Carolina home. It's true that it's between the kids, and maybe it's better for parents not to interfere too much. However, Karen seemed to have a different opinion. A few days later, we ran into each other at the entrance, and Karen walked over to me and said, "Hey Caddy, it seems like Emberly is ignoring my Zeph." "What?" "Zeph says that even when he talks to her, she ignores him. It's really hurting his feelings." "I'm sorry. I'll check with Emberly. Even if they had a fight, ignoring is not good." "Exactly, please do. I know it's tough, but make sure you raise your kids properly." "What? What do you mean by tough?" "Oh, I'm sorry, it just slipped out. Actually, I heard something about your husband from mine." "About Ronald? What did you hear?" "Oh, should I say this? I heard he dropped out of college. And now he's in our company's sales department. It must be hard for you. Most of the sales team are from prestigious universities." "I see. Oh, I'm sorry. My husband is the manager, so I hear a lot. Dropping out must make it tough to keep up with the job, right? It must be hard." "What?" "So, the child rearing falls to you, right? But you can't neglect discipline. If you don't discipline her now, she'll end up causing trouble for others." "I see. If you're struggling with parenting, just let me know. I'm the one who disciplines my son while my husband is busy. I can teach you how to do it." "I see. Well then, take care." After saying what she wanted, Karen quickly walked away. That night, I told Ronald about my encounter with Karen. "That's what happened." "Well, it's true that my highest degree is from high school. She probably heard it from Mr. Edison." "Even if you dropped out, that was really rude of her." "Yeah, it was. But I don't care what she says about me." "How are Emberly and Zeph doing? Are they still fighting?" "I asked Emberly, and she said she's ignoring Zeph because he didn't apologize for hurting Carolina. I told her that's not okay." "Hopefully, they can make up." "Yeah." A few days after that conversation, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, it was Karen and Zeph. I wondered what it was about. Zeph's tutoring was canceled today. He wanted to play with friends, so I brought him over. They're classmates, right? And I have a hair appointment, so could you watch him for 2 hours? "What?" "If you watch him, I'll give you some advice on discipline," she said with a confident look. "And it seems like with a dropout husband, your home is quite modest." Karen peered into our house and muttered in a small voice. Then she looked at her watch and said, "Oh, it's already this time. Sorry, I have to go now. Bye." Karen left Zeph at my house without waiting for my response. Then, Zeph walked into the house without saying a word. Just moments later, from the back of the room, "No, stop it." I heard Emberly scream. "What happened?" I hurried over to find Zeph had scribbled all over the picture Emberly was drawing. "Mom, Zeph ruined my picture." Zeph, unapologetic, said, "I fixed it because it was weird." "It wasn't weird." "Yes, it was. Mom said that your dad didn't go to a good school, so you'd end up weird too." While comforting Emberly, I said, "Emberly, your picture wasn't weird. Why don't you try drawing it again?" Then, turning to the sulking Zeph, I asked, "Do you want to draw something too?" I decided to have them both draw. But Zeph, "This is boring. Give me a snack," quickly said. When I gave him a snack, he started wandering around the house, leaving crumbs everywhere. He didn't listen even when I told him to stop. The 2 hours I promised to watch him dragged on as Zeph continued fighting with Emberly. Yet, Karen didn't come back. Well, I thought, sometimes there's a bit of a wait at the salon. However, Karen finally returned 2 hours later. Thank you. Zeph, let's go home. You're late. Oh, don't be so picky. I ran into a friend and had a little tea party. That's why I'm late. A tea party? While leaving your child with someone else? Ignoring my surprise, Karen continued as if it were completely normal. A little delay is fine. I guess when your husband didn't finish college, you have to pinch pennies, and you get a bit picky. I might ask you again, okay? Without asking how Zeph behaved, Karen hurriedly left. After Zeph left, I had to clean up all the toys he left out and vacuum the whole house. About a week later, Karen tried to drop Zeph off again. She approached with a smile. Caddy, do you have plans this afternoon? I have a date with friends and need you to watch Zeph again. Recalling the previous incident, I politely declined. Oh, sorry, I have plans today. Karen's friendly smile disappeared instantly, replaced by a serious look. I see. She walked away. The next day, I saw Keely, who looked exhausted. I asked, "What's wrong?" Yesterday, Karen suddenly left Zeph with us. She did? Was it okay? To be honest, not really. Carolina remembers when Zeph pushed her before, so she doesn't want to be around him. But Zeph is still causing trouble, so I had to keep intervening. It was exhausting. Sorry to hear that. I deeply sympathized with Keely. It seemed Karen didn't consider changing her plans for her child. After that, Karen started giving me various tasks. We're having a tea party this Saturday, so Caddy, please put up a notice on the board and clean the garbage area. And even when I did it, she complained. Caddy, this is the bulletin board announcement. Everyone is looking forward to the tea party, so could you make it a bit more festive? You really lack sense. The garbage area could be a bit cleaner. I wonder if your home looks like this too. I kept hearing such complaints, having to revise simple notices repeatedly and clean up over and over again. One day, after these ongoing hassles, something decisive happened. I got a call from the school during the day. Apparently, Zeph had an argument and pushed Emberly, causing her to get hurt. When I went to the office, Ms. Donnelly, this way please. I was led to another room. Inside, I saw Emberly with tears in her eyes, her arm bandaged, and Zeph looking sullen. Emberly, what happened? Oh, Ms. Donnelly. Ms. Edison will be here shortly, and then we can discuss in detail. Soon, Karen arrived. She immediately rushed to Zeph. Zeph, are you okay? Are you hurt? Then she glared at us. All right, let's discuss. The teacher began explaining. Apparently, Zeph and Emberly had an argument during recess. Zeph had teased Emberly. Your dad is stupid. And when Emberly retorted, No, he isn't. Zeph pushed her, causing her to get injured. Hearing this, Karen lightly scolded her son. Zeph, you shouldn't push a girl. Sorry for the trouble, teacher. She then apologized to the school staff. We'll make sure this doesn't happen again. She started to leave. I couldn't hold back my voice. Wait a minute, Karen. Zeph hasn't apologized to Emberly yet. When you say that... Oh, I just told him pushing is wrong, didn't I? Don't be so angry. It's just a kid's fight, isn't it? Emberly just got a little scratch. She'll be fine soon. Well then, excuse us. I was stunned by Karen's cold attitude. That night, I talked to Ronald about what happened at school. I feel bad for Emberly. It's because I didn't correct things properly that she got hurt. Yes, I explained it to Emberly, and she understood. But I can't stand Karen anymore. Right. The company's internal notices are coming soon, so let's clear up the misunderstanding. The next day, I saw Emberly off to school at the entrance. On the way back, I ran into Karen. This is a good chance. Today, I'll speak up. Good morning. I greeted her, but Karen coldly replied, "Good morning," and tried to walk away, so I said, "Karen, can we talk for a moment?" "What is it?" "I have plans. Unlike you, I'm not free." "I'm not free either. I just want to discuss yesterday's incident with the kids." "What? Are you asking for compensation for such a small injury?" "No, that's not it. Why did Zeph say such awful things to Emberly?" "We need to talk about it because that's why the kids had an argument yesterday." "Oh, that? It's not like he said anything wrong. Your husband did drop out of college, didn't he?" "That's not the point. Are you telling your kids that dropping out is bad? And that it's okay to hurt others because of it?" "Huh? That's not true at all. I've raised Zeph properly. I've only taught him the truth." "So, you're teaching him that dropping out means he's dumb, as a fact?" "There's nothing wrong with that." "Yes, there is. It's just a baseless assumption." "What are you talking about?" "Dropping out means he wasn't smart enough to continue." "So, your husband dropped out because he wasn't smart enough?" Karen kept repeating the words "dropped out" over and over. "My husband says dropouts are useless." "So, that means your husband, right?" "Your husband is in the sales department, isn't he?" "My husband is the sales manager, and he complains about him all the time." "Ah, so that's why Zeph has been saying things to Emberly." As I was thinking that, Karen continued, "So, could you tell your husband to try harder?" "What?" "If there's a dropout in the sales department, it hurts our company's reputation. I want to support my husband as a good wife should. If there's someone useless, it should be pointed out. That's a wife's duty, right?" "I have no intention of meddling in my husband's work." "What?" "I was just giving you friendly advice. If you defy me, I'll have your husband fired." "Think I'm bluffing?" Karen looked down at me with an air of superiority. "Oh, really?" I couldn't take it anymore and decided to reveal a truth. "Go ahead and fire him if you can. By the way, let me correct you, Karen. You said our company, right? Actually, it's not your company. It's my husband's company." "What?" "Yes, it's my husband's company." "What are you talking about?" "I'm close with the president's wife." "Don't say nonsense. This is why dropouts are troublesome. Only people at your level would fall for such lies. The current owner, the president, is quite old now, right? So Ronald, who was in charge of a branch, will take over. He's been working in the main office's sales department since spring to prepare for the transition." "What?" "By the way, the president is my uncle." "Uncle?" "My uncle and his wife don't have children. So they chose Ronald, a trusted relative, to take over. Ronald is the next president and the owner of the company. Do you understand?" "What?" "That's a lie. If he were the next president, he'd live in a fancier house, right? This is corporate housing. Your home's interior looks so modest. It's like you're poor." "People can live wherever they want. The current president does the same. We don't plan to live in a mansion. We'll be moving out of here eventually, though. So, a dropout is going to be our company's president? Is that okay? Ronald's education might be considered incomplete, but he received elite training under the current president. It's rare these days, but he was mentored closely by the president from a young age. He was also sent to business school overseas. What? What are you saying? As Karen said this in shock, another voice chimed in. That's right. I've served the president since I was young. I'm deeply grateful to have married his niece. The voice was my husband, Ronald. What? Why are you home? I was surprised by Ronald's sudden appearance. I came to inform you about the company's internal notice today and to clear up Ms. Edison's misunderstanding. What? Husband? You mean the CEO? Yes. I'm sorry for the late introduction. I'm Ronald Donnelly. I'm sorry for causing some confusion. But until the internal announcement was made, it was a secret even within the company, so we couldn't tell anyone at corporate housing. I see. I understand. By the way, Mr. Edison has also received an internal notice. What? Does that mean he's finally getting promoted? Actually, it would be best if you heard it from him directly, but I think it's important to prepare and brace yourself, so I'll tell you. Prepare? Brace myself? What do you mean? Mr. Edison has been demoted and his punishment will be decided later. What? What do you mean? Is it because my son called the CEO stupid? I'm so sorry. I'll make sure to talk to my son about it. Please forgive us. No, that's not good either, but the situation is more serious. What? Then why? Well, it's a common issue in the world, but it's a first case in our company. He demanded improper kickbacks from a client. It was a financial matter. It had already been confirmed, but now it's come to light. What? I was in the sales department to investigate the details. Considering the future, you should talk things over with your husband. What? What is this? I can't just sit here. Excuse me. Karen ran off as if she were escaping. After that, Mr. Edison's family moved out of corporate housing. The more they investigated Edison, the more they found, and he was eventually dismissed. As for my family, we bought a house as originally planned and moved out of corporate housing. We could have stayed in corporate housing, but we didn't want to make other families uncomfortable. However, since Emberly had gotten used to elementary school, we bought a house near corporate housing. Thanks to that, Emberly can still play with Carolina after school, and she's happy about that. Also, since Zeph, who used to bully them at school, is no longer there, they can enjoy their time together. I've become the CEO's wife, but my relationship with Keely hasn't changed. I was really surprised. I can't believe you're the CEO's wife. I'm sorry, I couldn't be honest with you at first. Yeah, you can't talk about things that aren't officially decided. How are things in corporate housing since Karen left? Well, the tea parties have stopped. Really? Yes. It seems like Karen was the one who started them, so without her, everyone found it bothersome to hold them monthly. Well, for casual conversations, you don't need to gather every month. That's right. If there's anything necessary, we can post it on the bulletin board. That's what it's for. It seems corporate housing has become quite peaceful. Later, I heard a rumor that Karen got divorced. Apparently, she's now living as a single mother with Zeph. She used to be so bossy and demanding when she was in corporate housing, but now she's on the receiving end, working at a supermarket. I guess it's what they call karma. And we have a new addition to our family. Emily found a puppy on her way home from school, and she insisted we keep it. The puppy is so cute, and now it's the darling of the whole family. We're planning to go camping with the dog this summer. It will be a fun trip as long as we're together as a family, no matter where we go. Kennedy, if you bought a new house, we're moving in with you. It's unthinkable for part of the family to leave the rest of us behind. Now that you're married to Cody, we're all in this together. Why do you have to stick so close to us? This is Cody's and my life. Don't you think it's time to let your son go? Why should we have to do that? Cody may be married, but he's still part of our family. And since you married Cody, you're now part of our family too. I appreciate you saying that, but I'm not a fan of being tied down. Regardless, I'm going to live with you too. It's useless to say no. If you won't accept it, I'll make you get a divorce. All right then. In that case, we'll get divorced. When I said that, my in-laws seemed overjoyed. They must be thrilled about being able to move into a new house. And no doubt they're happy to remove me from the family. I was fed up with my in-laws, so I'm feeling refreshed to get away from them. However, on moving day, I got an angry call from my mother-in-law Matilda. She must have finally realized she fell into the trap I set. What's going on here? This isn't what we agreed on. This is unacceptable. Do you have any idea how awful what you've done is? It's too late to say that now. Cody and I are already divorced, so I have nothing to do with you anymore. Just accept living in that house quietly. Bye. Then, as if he'd been listening in, my ex-husband Cody took over for Matilda. You think you can get away with this? I never knew you were this unreasonable. I'm baffled as to why I ever married someone like you. Right back at you. When I said that, Cody fell silent, apparently unable to find a retort. I hope they, thinking only of themselves, will suffer thoroughly. My name is Kennedy, 28 years old. I work at a real estate company I joined after graduating college. My job isn't to do sales myself, but to entertain clients brought in by our company's salespeople. So I don't do any outside work, and am always in the office. But this job involves talking with many people, so there are apparently a lot of chances to meet someone compared to other companies. Thanks to that, I started dating someone I met through work a few years ago, and we ended up getting married. When I first met Cody, he was a truly wonderful man. He forgave me no matter what I said and always put me first. When I introduced Cody to my friends, they were so envious. Cody really is a great guy. You won't find many like him, so you have to cherish him. I guess you met him because you're a good person too, Kennedy. I'm so happy to hear you praise him like that. I've never met such a good man either. That's why I intend to treasure him. We just got married, so there's still a lot I don't know though. But you dated him for a long time before getting married, right? So you must know him pretty well. Everyone around us is starting to get married too, but I think Cody is the best of all. There aren't many people who can think that much of their spouse. That may be true, but I can't relax just yet. I don't know what kind of people Cody's parents are, and there's the whole daughter-in-law issues too. They seemed like good people when we met though. If they raised a guy like Cody, his parents must be good people. But you never know what might happen in this world, so you can't be totally at ease. If anything happens, you can always talk to me. I'm on your side, Kennedy. I'm so happy to hear you say that. I'm always relying on you. Sorry about that. My friends praise Cody a lot. I like Cody too, but when my friends compliment him, I end up liking him even more. It makes me think I have to treasure him more, and reaffirms just how precious he is. Even after getting married, Cody stayed a good man, always putting me first. From what I hear, a lot of people change completely after marriage, so I'm really grateful for Cody's personality. But a few months after we got married, Cody started acting strange recently. He'd leave me at home and frequently go back to his parents' place. I didn't know what he was doing, so I decided to ask him. "You've been going back to your parents a lot lately. What are you doing there? If something happened with your family, I'd like you to tell me about it." "Is there some issue you can't even tell me about?" "It's nothing. I just go back because I want to." "Or is there some reason I'm not allowed to visit my own family?" "I didn't think you were the kind of woman to be so controlling." "That's not what I meant, but why are you talking like that? You've been acting weird lately. Did something happen?" "If you're having trouble at work, I'm here to listen. Just because you're some big shot at a real estate firm, you think you can boss me around? If you have that much free time, why don't you find us a house to live in? You're in real estate, so it should be easy, right?" "All right, I'll look for a house for the two of us then. Do you have any particular conditions you want?" "I'll take those into consideration if you do. We might have kids in the future, so I want as big a house as possible. We don't know how many we'll have, so find the biggest place you can." Since Cody told me to, I started looking for a house. I wasn't thrilled with how he said it, but I'm glad he's thinking about things like our future kids. Honestly, if we were a normal couple, it might be weird to be happy about just this. But I've been worried with Cody constantly going back to his parents' place, so even this made me happy. And when I was looking for a house for the two of us, I found a few good ones. So I decided to suggest them to Cody. Cody is the type to carefully consider everything, so I don't expect him to make a decision right away. But I'm hoping to at least get his opinion. I was thinking about that when Cody happened to get home from work. So I decided to talk to him about the house stuff. "Hey, I found a few good houses. Can you take a look? I'm not saying you have to choose from these, I just want your opinion. This is the house we'll be living in from now on, so let's decide carefully. Oh right, I forgot to tell you something, Kennedy. Actually, my mom and Alexis are coming over today. So get things ready. If you don't tidy up the rooms more, Mom will get mad at you." I never heard anything about that. What's going on? If they're coming, tell me way in advance. There's only so much I can do if you spring this on me suddenly. I thought I told you, but I was busy with work and forgot. It's not something to get that mad about. What's with you? You just need to clean a bit, so don't get so angry. We just got married, so I don't want Matilda to hate me. I can't believe you don't understand how I feel. I was trying to talk about the house and everything, but now that plan is ruined. Why are you so mad? It's just two family members coming over. And we can talk about the house whenever, it's fine. You're in real estate, you must talk about houses all day. If anything, I figured you wouldn't want to talk about it. Talking about real estate for work and talking about the house we'll live in are completely different. I've been squeezing in time to look this whole time. Why are you saying such awful things? I was so happy when you said we should look for a house. Cody doesn't seem to understand my feelings at all, looking totally unfazed. It's not like I'd react this badly if Matilda and my sister-in-law Alexis were nice people. But Matilda and Alexis seem to hate me, always acting superior and pressuring me. I haven't told anyone, but it's really stressing me out. I haven't told Cody because I don't want to make him worry. So I don't think he's noticed at all. Still, I'm clearly showing how much I hate this. I'm so disappointed he won't sympathize with me at all. He was so kind before we got married. Why did it end up like this? Before we got married, he was desperate to win me over. But now that he has me, maybe he stopped caring. But now that we're married, I can't just easily get divorced. So I start getting ready for the two of them to come, even though I don't want to. But while I'm getting ready, the two of them show up. My, I thought he told you we were coming, but you're still cleaning up. You really are a slob through and through. I can't believe why Cody married you. I'm sorry, I only just heard you two were coming. If I knew in advance, I would have gotten ready. You think that excuse will fly? You should keep things tidy even if we weren't coming. Living in a messy house, there must be something wrong with you. It wasn't that messy. I'm almost done cleaning, so please wait a bit. Go on in and relax with Cody for now. Geez, making us go out of our way. There's definitely something wrong with you. If you're part of our family, you need to get your act together. I heard you work for a real estate firm, so I thought you'd be more capable than this. The two of them just keep bad-mouthing me. It seems like they dote on Cody so much that they don't like me, his wife. I heard before that the two of them told Cody he never had to get married. Normally you'd think they'd want him to get married, but apparently this family is different. They want to stay together as much as possible. Alexis apparently chose not to get married for that reason. But there's nothing I can do even if they say that to me after we're already married. If they're going to complain, I wish they'd complain to Cody who chose to get married. But even when they say stuff to me, Cody doesn't take my side at all. He doesn't seem to care even when I try talking to him directly about it. Why did those two suddenly decide to visit? Honestly, I don't like them, so I want them to leave soon. At this rate, it's going to really stress me out. Apparently they're renovating their house, so they'll be staying with us for a while. We just got married, so you're not used to it yet, but you'll get used to it with this visit. If you don't get along with them soon, it'll just stay awkward. I never heard about this. This makes no sense. Why didn't you tell me about something so important way sooner? How long are they planning to stay? I don't know the details, but just assume we'll be living together. We got married and became a family, so deal with at least that much. We're trying to buy a new house anyway, so it works out. Wait a second, you're planning to live together even in the new house? Is that why you said to find a place that fits a lot of people? We're family, so don't ignore me like this. You don't have to get so mad. We're family. Living with 2 people or 4 people, it's no different. Anyway, just find a house for all of us to live in. What Cody is saying makes absolutely no sense. We finally got married, so why do we have to live with 4 people? I was worried, so I asked before we got married, but he said there was no chance of a 2-family home. But now that he's saying this after we're married, I can't accept it. But it seems like the other 3 are moving forward with this without me. I accidentally overheard them talking about living together when I wasn't around. I wonder what kind of place the new house will be. If possible, I'd like somewhere with a big yard. She's a real estate agent, so she'll find a good place. We can just relax and wait. That's why you married a real estate agent after all. She better find a good house for us or we'll be in trouble. She can't do anything besides her job, so at least she can look for a house. For now, let's keep talking about this without her finding out. We just need to get our hands on a good house. I had no idea they were scheming behind my back like this. I can't believe the reason Cody married me was for a house. I'm sure Cody had other reasons too, but Matilda and Alexis really seemed to be in it for the house. So that's why he was nice to me before we got married, but suddenly got cold and started going back to his parents' place after the wedding. Now that I've heard that, I can't put up with this anymore. I've decided to divorce Cody. I won't forgive them for harassing me so much while planning to benefit themselves. They tried to use me, so I'll make absolutely sure they regret it. While keeping those feelings to myself and pretending I hadn't heard anything, I proceeded with the meeting about the house with Cody. About the new house, is it okay if I decide everything? I'll make sure it's a house the four of us can comfortably live in, so don't worry. You're a real estate agent after all, so find us a good place. Alexis said she wants somewhere with a big yard, so consider that too. And Mom said she wants to get a pet, so I'm counting on you for that as well. I see, so a house with a big yard where we can have pets. The pets shouldn't be an issue since it's our own place. But if we want a big yard, it might end up being a bit in the countryside. That's not a problem at all, so don't worry about it. The place Mom and Alexis live now is pretty rural too. Dad works away from home and doesn't come back, so you don't have to think about that. I hadn't heard about Taylor, so he works away from home? But is it really okay to decide on the house without getting their opinion? If we're going to live together, shouldn't we discuss it with them? Those two are leaving it to you since you're a real estate agent. So you can go ahead without worrying about them. If anything happens, I'll take responsibility, so don't worry. It's just until the renovations on their house are done anyway. We don't have to think too hard about it. Cody says that, but I know better since I overheard them. Rather than trusting me, they're just trying to use me. Honestly, I say the four of us will live together to Cody, but I have no intention of that. I'll wait for the right moment, then send my in-laws crashing down. I'm sure once we buy the new house, they'll say we're all living together forever. So that's what I'm aiming for as I advance my plan. I don't know how it will turn out in the end, but I'll keep thinking things over as I proceed with the plan. But even while I'm thinking about that, Matilda and Alexis keep harassing me. As for Alexis, apparently she quit her job right when she came to stay with us. And she has the nerve to demand money from me. Hey, I heard real estate agents make good money. Is that true? If it is, I'll hold on to it for you. I used to work at a bank, so you can feel safe in trusting it to me. You don't have to go to the trouble. I have the bank managing it properly, so don't worry. Thank you for your concern though. You really don't get it, do you? I'm telling you to hand over the money now. We let you marry Cody, so the least you can do is give us some money. Why should I have to give you money? And if you need money, I think you should work for it. I don't get why you're demanding it from me at all. We're family now, so of course we should combine our bank accounts. As a first step, you can let me hold on to your money. Of course I'll give it back to you after increasing it, so don't worry about that. Increase it? You mean you're planning to go gambling again? I heard from Cody that you do that a lot. Please don't use my hard-earned money for that. Geez, you're really hopeless. Even after I explained this much, you won't hand over the money. You're way too stingy. If you're going to be like that, I'll make Cody divorce you. If you like Cody that much, why don't you get money from him? If you can really increase it, I'm sure Cody would be thrilled. And I think you should ask Cody first before me anyway. What are you saying? Cody's salary is low, so I feel bad for him. You must have a screw loose if you don't get that. I won't forgive you if you keep this up. So you don't feel bad for me? This makes absolutely no sense. Anyway, I have no intention of giving you money. When I said that, Alexis stormed off somewhere, probably realizing she definitely wasn't getting the money. I guess even Alexis couldn't do anything after I firmly refused like that. But trying to live with us and even demand money from me, it's totally absurd. The more they stress me out like this, the more I want to get back at them majorly. That said, I didn't think Alexis would give up that easily, so I decided to watch the situation for a while. The next morning, while thinking about that, I checked my bag. The money I put in there to pay utility bills was gone. The timing made me suspect Alexis, so I watched her for a bit. And sure enough, I caught her stealing my money. It seems she's been taking money not just for utilities, but from my wallet too. And it's not just Alexis harassing me, but Matilda too. Is the new house still not decided? If you don't hurry, the renovations on our place will be done. I want to live in the new house, so decide quickly. I'm looking as hard as I can, but it's just not getting decided. For 4 adults to have plenty of space, it has to be a pretty big house. There are some if we go a bit rural, but... Oh, just pick one of those then, let's decide. If you don't find a house soon, it'll be cramped here. How long are you going to make us suffer? You don't have to say it like that. I'm scrambling to deal with you all suddenly deciding to live with us. Just hurry up and decide on a house. Make it so we can move in 2 weeks. Otherwise, I'll have Cody divorce you. Oh, okay. Normally I'd hate only being told unpleasant things, but for me, fully intending to divorce Cody, those words made me happy. I decided to take what Matilda said at face value and act on it. So no matter what they say to me, there's no room for argument. After all, it's what Matilda herself told me to do. And just as they requested, I found a suitable house and brought it up with Cody. He said to put it in his name so he doesn't look bad to Matilda and Alexis. Putting it in your name means you're paying the down payment too, right? We can split the mortgage payments, but the down payment is set low anyway, so it's fine. More importantly, I want it in my name in case something happens. I want to be able to say it's my house no matter what. If you're okay with that. And you don't need to check anything else about the house? You won't complain even if I go ahead with the contract like this? You took Mom and Alexis' opinions into account, right? Then I won't nitpick. You can double-check with them if you want, but I don't think they'll say anything. I'll check with them so I don't get complained at if something happens. I'm afraid they'll gripe and push responsibility onto me. I'll confirm with them tomorrow, and go ahead with the contract if it seems alright. As long as it's in my name, I don't care about the details. You 3 women can do whatever you want with the rest. Since he said that, I decided to get confirmation from those 2 so they wouldn't have any complaints. It seems like they trust me with finding a property since I'm a real estate agent. So I don't think they'll have any objections, but I wanted to check just in case. I have to, or else I feel like they'll gripe at me in all sorts of ways after we move. Thinking that, I immediately went to confirm with the 2 of them. I found the house we'll be living in next, but can you check it? It's a property with a big yard and ability to have pets that you 2 mentioned. That said, I assume you 2 will move out right away, but if it has a big yard, anywhere is fine, just hurry it up. I heard you were a capable real estate agent, but you're way too slow. If you're thinking of us, put a move on it. Anywhere is fine with me too as long as it's bigger than here. But having pets has always been my dream, so keep that in mind. Just get a move on or staying here will get depressing. I'm going as fast as I can here. It has the conditions of a big yard and allowing pets, so are we good? Then I'll go ahead with the contract on this house. We don't need you to check that stuff, just hurry up and sign the contract. How long are you going to make us live here? You really don't think of your family at all, I'm sick of it. Having firmly gotten statements from both of them, they have no right to complain no matter what kind of house it is. And it's huge that Cody is paying the down payment even though we're splitting the cost of the house. I wanted to reduce the amount I'm responsible for even a little. He's not usually this generous with money, so I think Matilda is assisting him. When I told Cody the contract was complete, Matilda and Alexis called for me. You finally decided on a house. You really are incapable at your job. Well, we'll be living together from now on, so I'm counting on you. Even if you say we're living together, it's just until the renovations are done, right? Oh, did I not tell you? We are renovating, but we already sold our old house. So we intend to live with you permanently. I never heard anything about that. Why didn't you tell me something so important? If it's true, I definitely think you should have said so from the start. What's the difference between living together a little while or forever? Just think of it as the time frame getting a bit longer. Are you trying to say you hate living with us that much? I really think Mom is totally right. Do you dislike living with my family that much? I can't believe you would say something like that. I just feel like my opinion isn't being considered at all. No matter how you look at it, it's wrong, so I don't want to live together. You could think about my feelings a little more. If you're that against living with us, we'll have Cody divorce you. I bet you don't want that, right? So live with us. And keep doing the housework for us too. If I have to go that far, then please divorce me. I loved Cody, but he's been strange lately. Please, all of you, go live in the new house or whatever. Oh, is that so? Works for us. Sorry you went to the trouble of finding a house though. The three of us, without you in the way, will live happily as a family. Everything contract related is finished, so rest assured. All that's left is paying for the house and alimony from the divorce. What do you mean alimony? I said I'd pay the down payment, but I never heard anything about alimony. There are a few things I want to claim, but first, you're cheating. Did you really think I hadn't noticed? Actually, when Cody suspiciously started going back to his parents more after we got married, I hired a private investigator. And it came out that while saying he was going to his parents, he was really going on dates with his coworker at work. I only found this out very recently, so I was planning to bring it up at this opportunity. Cody didn't seem to realize I had hired an investigator. And if I brought it up before deciding on divorce, I figured he'd try to talk his way out of it. So I properly asked the investigator to prepare evidence like photos. Either Cody had no idea I was doing this, or he's acting extremely surprised. Matilda and Alexis didn't seem to know either, unable to hide their shock. And when I lay out the photographic evidence, the three of them stare at it intently. I can't believe this was going on. I thought it was suspicious, so I had my investigator thoroughly investigated you. I thought you were going back to your parents way too much. Any man will have an affair or two. If you can't even forgive that, you're a really small-minded woman. Alexis will have to pay alimony too. Why should I have to pay alimony? I haven't cheated, so I have no obligation to pay. Alexis, you were stealing my money, right? The money for utility bills and from my wallet. Did you think I wouldn't notice? Don't spout nonsense with no proof. If it's proof you want, I have video I secretly took. And no way. Alexis, you borrowed money from me too, and you were doing stuff like that? Apparently, even though she told me she couldn't borrow from Cody, she must have gotten desperate. It seems she borrowed from him too. Not knowing that, Matilda looks flabbergasted. Anyway, please just pay the alimony and for the house. It's in Cody's name, so you all have the obligation to pay. This can't be. After that, the three of them moved into the new house at the address I sent them. The place we were living until now, I canceled the lease right at the renewal timing. So I'm at my parents' place. I thought I might be a bit lonely after the divorce, but with my parents and cat here, I don't feel that lonely. If anything, I feel refreshed being away from my in-laws. While I was relaxing like that, I got an intense call from Matilda. Judging from the number of missed calls, something must have happened. I'm sure she realized the plot I schemed. I don't want them coming to the house, so I decided to answer. Hey, what is going on here? You tricked us, didn't you? Do you think you can get away with this? You sound really angry, but what happened? I just found a house that met your requests. And I got confirmation from you all before signing the contract. The house came with a ranch, and we're obligated to raise animals. I never heard anything about that. What are you going to do about this? It has a ranch as the big yard, and pets were already included. Alexis isn't working, so she can raise them. I just did exactly what you all told me to. There's no way we can raise cows. What kind of nonsense are you spouting? Anyway, we can't live somewhere like this. It's too late, the contract is already in Cody's name. Live there until you find a new place. I won't forgive you for this, prepare yourself. When I got your permission, you all signed the contract, remember? So no matter what, this will work out in my favor. In no way. When did you do that? Did you know we were trying to use you? I overheard that conversation too. Too bad, but you have no choice but to live there. This can't be. Why do we have to live on a ranch? If she has evidence of everything, we can't do anything. Now that I have proof, no one can argue back anymore. Actually, when I got their permission, I had them sign a written agreement just in case. So none of them can dispute it at all. The three of them were so eager to move that they signed without suspecting a thing. In the end, according to my coworker handling Cody and the others, they sold their old house too. So they're living in the rural house with the ranch that I picked out. It took time to find a property that came with a ranch that needed managing, but I'm glad I worked hard for it. I was able to properly get alimony from Cody, and now I'm living comfortably at my parents' place. I don't know what will happen from here on, but I'm going to believe in myself and keep living my life. I've gotten calls from Cody and Matilda asking me to help them, but I don't think they're worth helping. So I'm blocking their calls and just getting updates from my coworker. I told my coworker to be strict with Cody and the others. So I think they'll be living in that house with the ranch for a while. Seems like a son's wife is just an outsider, huh? No need to waste fancy coffee on a stranger like you. We'll enjoy it ourselves. With that, Emil grinned wickedly. Well, if that's how it's going to be, so be it. This is a game. A doubles game between Emil Elizabeth and Sale Felicia versus me and my husband. Strategy is key in a game. Just you watch. So, I cheerfully responded, gladly, with a big smile. My name is Diana. A 32-year-old working mother. Married to Elliot for 5 years. The day to build our own house has finally arrived. Building a house has been our goal since the beginning of our marriage. We visited various houses, took our time deciding, and diligently saved up. When our child was born 2 years into the marriage, our plans hit a snag. But Elliot and I persevered, and finally, we reached our savings goal. However, actually building the house was harder than imagined. A house is a big purchase. You can't just buy another if something goes wrong. We considered factors like transportation convenience, shopping accessibility, a child-friendly environment, and the reputation of local schools. And whether it was an easy commute for Elliot, a full-time employee. So many things to consider, even just finding the right location was tough. We eventually settled near the in-laws' house. It wasn't out of preference, but because the location was good. It wasn't about living together, but about bearing with minor annoyances. Once the land was decided, it was time to order the house. This was another challenge. Building our ideal home, with budget at the forefront, was full of issues. We progressed, step by step. But complicating matters further were Elizabeth and Felicia. For some reason, they kept interfering. When we mentioned building a house, both suddenly became interested. Elizabeth's eyes sparkled, and Felicia, in her late 20s and single, was excited.
Where will it be built? Which home builder are you using? What will the interior look like?
They asked all sorts of questions. I tried to brush them off. But then they somehow found out about our meetings with the home builder and the architect and started crashing them. How do they even find these things out? Sorry, it was me who talked. Elliot apologized. So you're the culprit? Even glaring at him, it was too late.
If the kitchen storage is too little,
Elizabeth would say,
having a wooden deck is essential,
Felicia would add. Somebody, please sew these two's mouths shut.
If you're doing barbecues in the garden, a big sink would be useful. A walk-in closet should be bigger, too. The windows should definitely be double-glazed for soundproofing. We'll need a bedroom for Mom and Dad, right? Shouldn't there be a room for Felicia to stay in too?
One after another. Wait, hold on. Why do we need a bedroom for the parents-in-law? And what's this about a room for Felicia? Ignoring Elliot and me, Elizabeth and Felicia, with almost a smirk, keep butting in, making the architect give a wry smile. After they left, I had to confirm with Elliot. I hoped not, but I had this bad feeling.
Hey, we're not planning to live together, right?
From their manner of speaking, I couldn't shake the feeling they were plotting just that. I hesitantly asked Elliot, who shook his head in a hurry.
No way! Dad wouldn't think of leaving the house he's used to. And Felicia's old enough, even if our parents' house was gone, there's no way she'd move in with us. That's what I thought.
Elliot denied it, but my anxiety didn't disappear. Somehow ignoring Elizabeth and Felicia's interference, we decided on the design and started construction. And a year later, our dream house was finally completed. It was tough, long, and oh so annoying. Lying on the living room sofa after moving in, I closed my eyes and recalled all the hardships. It was educational and fun looking at various properties.
Hey Mom, is it okay to put my cup here? Why not? Let's use this corner of the cupboard for mine and Felicia's things.
There were times, pointed out by the architect, when I felt disheartened by the difference between the ideal and the reality.
The best room on the second floor has to be sunny, right? I'll take the biggest one? Yeah, I'm getting old, a small room would be tiring. Let's go with that.
I really wanted to plant a viburnum in the garden. But who knew I'd have to research the type of soil, too.
Okay, then I'll call the moving company.
Thanks. You're reliable, Felicia. And then there's, wait, what's with these people swarming my house?
Elizabeth and Felicia. Why are you meddling with things inside the house? We're just moving things to make it more livable.
Felicia replied nonchalantly to my question. My clothes, still in boxes, were pushed to a corner, and somehow Felicia's clothes were making their way into the closet. Elizabeth too.
This new house is nice. It's exciting,
said, making herself coffee and starting to eat cookies. No crumbs on the floor.
Hey, both of you, stop doing whatever you please. This is our house, you know.
I shouted, panicked, as the two behaved as if they were the ones who would be living here. But at that moment, the atmosphere changed.
What are you talking about?
Felicia said.
Huh?
As I tilted my head in confusion, Felicia pointed and continued.
This house was built by my brother Elliot.
Elizabeth nodded in agreement.
That's right. It's my son Elliot's house. What's wrong with parents or siblings living here?
There's plenty wrong with it. The worry I had since before the house was built seemed to be turning into reality. Could it be these two?
Then that settles it. Felicia and I will take the big room on the second floor. The room next to it will be Elliot's, no problem, right? There's a big problem. The big room is for me and my husband, and the next room is for our son.
What are you talking about?
Elliot and the grandson can just share.
What Elizabeth said made no sense.
No, it's too small for Elliot, me, and our son.
Elliot and the grandson can manage.
I'm here too, you know.
What are you talking about? That's when Elizabeth looked at me with a sinister smile.
Listen here. This house was built by Elliot, who's related by blood. That means it's the right of his blood relatives to live here. You're just an outsider, a stranger. You should just sleep on that sofa over there,
she said, pointing to the sofa. You're kidding, right? Elizabeth and Felicia seem serious about living in this house. My precious home is about to be occupied by this alien mother-daughter duo. Worried, I consulted Elliot that night. Luckily, they hadn't stayed over yet, but since they were talking about movers, they might seriously start living here soon.
Hey, are you really going to give them the biggest room?
No way. Of course not. When I told Elliot about today, he frowned.
But they're talking about turning our room into Elizabeth and Felicia's room?
That's a bit much. Elliot, looking troubled, tilted his head and talked with Elizabeth and Felicia the next day. And I thought they understood.
What, Elizabeth? What are you doing?
We're moving in. They didn't get it at all. During the day, when our son was at daycare and Elliot was at work, Elizabeth arrived with movers and started bringing in boxes.
Moving in!
Really, such an inflexible daughter-in-law. Why should we have to settle for a small room? That's practically ungrateful. After all, a son's wife is just a stranger.
Didn't Elliot tell you anything? He did. No to the big room.
What a narrowed-down version of the story. Living in this house at all is the problem. I was stunned as they moved everything in. The space intended for our son's room was now occupied by heaps of cardboard boxes, and then Felicia arrived. Oh no, it's a small room.
Felicia! What on earth? Hi, Diana, let's get along from now on. Since it's the joyous first day of moving in, let's have a luxurious dinner, okay? No.
Ignoring me, Elizabeth and Felicia disappeared into their room and closed the door. Oh, great. Due to Elizabeth and Felicia's surprise invasion, our new home was now occupied by the enemy. Suddenly, I was living with the occupying force. Cleaning, laundry, cooking, all my responsibility, which I wasn't happy about. And them using our stuff without permission was upsetting. But I couldn't really tell them not to use things since we were living together. As I was thinking this, Felicia took out a bottle of wine. That was something I bought for myself, but before I could say anything, she drank it. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Elizabeth generously using my expensive lotion.
That's expensive stuff. I ordered various things for the luxurious dinner, and of course, I had to pay. Elizabeth and Felicia ate all the delivered dinner. I didn't get a single bite. Elizabeth and Felicia always took showers before me, my husband, and our son. And they always left the hot water running. They never contributed to the utility bills. And they watched TV late into the night at high volume. The house was a mess, dirty everywhere. I'm always positive. Gradually, the absurdity became amusing. I decided to enjoy it. This was a hospitality game with Elizabeth and Felicia. Getting angry is bad for the skin, after all. So, let the hospitality game begin. One holiday. During a day off when Elliot and our son were home, Felicia woke up scratching her head and sat at the dining table. And she asked me, I'm so sleepy. Didn't get enough sleep. Is there coffee? Still sleepy after sleeping till noon. Then Elizabeth woke up. And similarly, Diana, make some coffee, she said, so I stood up. This is a game, a game. I win if I impress them. With that thought, I opened the cabinet with the coffee.
Let's see, there should be the instant coffee I bought yesterday.
It was a bit more expensive than usual. I showed it with a smug face, but they both looked disappointed. Don't they like it? Then Felicia stood up and started searching the cabinet. And found it, she said, taking out coffee beans.
Those are from a gift Elliot got from his boss.
It's not just any coffee, it's premium. We don't drink coffee from beans at home, so it was kind of wasted on us. Misunderstanding my expression, Felicia smirked.
What? Hiding such good beans, Diana? You're so mean. Eh?
Elizabeth nodded at Felicia's words.
Really? You don't want us, who are not blood related, to drink delicious coffee? You're definitely an outsider. Such an outsider doesn't deserve this luxury coffee. What?
We'll drink this gifted premium coffee. An outsider like you is fine with instant coffee, lol. And Elizabeth laughed. This is not making any sense. But there's no interpreter. For me, it's actually a relief that they're using up the bean coffee. Seeing Elliot nodding in agreement.
Sure, I'd be glad to,
I said with a smile. She probably didn't expect that kind of response.
What?
Elizabeth looked surprised. Ignoring that, I took the coffee beans from Felicia.
All right, I'll make some delicious coffee now. Okay then.
Felicia seemed puzzled by my smile. There I was, rolling up my sleeves, ready to go. Let the game begin, making delicious coffee. But when I opened the bag and saw the beans, I was a bit stumped. I called Elliot, who was looking worried, for a consultation. He came over as I gestured.
What's up? Hey! How do you use coffee beans?
I've never made coffee from beans before. I asked Elliot, but I don't know either. He replied. Now we're in trouble. Our game of making the best coffee has hit a snag right from the start. Should we look it up online? No, that's the last resort. What to do then? Just have to wring out whatever little knowledge we have.
I think you have to grind them into a powder,
said Elliot. Okay, that makes sense.
But we don't have a mill or a blender. What about a mortar?
It got lost during the move. After some thought.
Maybe it's fine just to use the beans as they are?
I strongly agreed with Elliot's suggestion. So, let's give it a try. Beans as they are, into the coffee maker's filter. Okay, pour hot water over this.
Look, Diana, it's getting color. Really?
So it's a success.
The color is super light, but surely that's what premium coffee looks like. Encouraged, we continued pouring hot water.
It's done. We've made premium coffee.
We proudly presented it to Elizabeth and Felicia. Elizabeth and Felicia sighed deeply at us.
Finally done? How long did it take you to? Seriously. Because of a stranger son's wife, time is wasted. It's so light.
Elizabeth smirked as she criticized me, then screamed when she saw the coffee.
What? It's so light. Is this tea?
Felicia frowned at the coffee too. We, the couple, shook our heads in disbelief.
Genuine premium coffee, extracted from high-quality beans. It's probably light in color because it's high class. We have milk and sugar if you need, but you should try it straight first.
With a musical note, I cheerfully pushed the cups towards them.
But... Please, go ahead. Elliot, is this really premium coffee? Yeah, the finest kind Diana and I made. Try it.
After being cheerfully encouraged by both of us, they reluctantly tasted the coffee. Immediately after.
So weak. Disgusting.
Elizabeth and Felicia both exclaimed.
What is this? This is not coffee. What is this? It's definitely weird. Diana, how did you make this coffee?
I just poured hot water over the beans.
What?
Was something wrong? I looked at Elliot, but he just shrugged. Weird, I just made it normally.
Too high class for your taste? Huh? I am a woman who suits high class stuff. It's this coffee that's odd. Ah, good. Then please drink it all. No, but I mean... Here you go.
If high-end stuff suits them, they'll surely get used to it while drinking. So, there's only one thing to do. I pushed the coffee cup to Felicia's mouth and made her drink forcefully. Meanwhile, Elliot, calling it filial piety, was encouraging Elizabeth to drink. Now, this is getting fun. The daily game is enjoyable.
Elizabeth, shall we clean your room? Hey, at least knock first. Ah, sorry. Since you always enter our room without knocking, I thought it wasn't necessary. Felicia, all this stuff on the floor is trash, right? I'll throw it all away. That's a premium bag. Elizabeth, since you said the seasoning was too light yesterday, I made it stronger today. Too strong. Not just strong, it's spicy.
Felicia, it seems you like my lotion, but I have something better. It has a unique smell, but it's good for your skin.
Smelly. What is this? Don't put it on my face.
The game of pleasing them was getting more and more fun. I continued to serve them with increasing enthusiasm. They cried with joy, so I win. Elliot was also doing various things, but as I spend more time with them, I have the advantage. Then one day, Elizabeth and Felicia disappeared. Huh? Then I received a call from Fael. Oh right, Freddie from the in-laws house. How has he been? Enjoying a carefree solo life? That's good. According to Freddie,
Elizabeth and Felicia came back crying. What happened? Elizabeth's lips are swollen, and Felicia's skin is shiny but smells terrible.
He said. They must have been so happy they went to report to Freddie. But they shouldn't think it's over yet. There's a barbecue in the garden tonight. I'm setting up a trampoline for Elizabeth and Felicia to enjoy, so I'll go pick them up now. I announced and went to fetch them from the in-laws' house. For some reason, they ran away, and a chase began. Eventually, I easily caught elderly Elizabeth and Felicia, who boasted about knowing all the hiding spots since childhood, was found by Elliot.
Stop it! Stop it, please!
They cried with joy, no need to be shy. A few days later, movers suddenly arrived and took Elizabeth and Felicia's stuff away. Why? I wanted to show more hospitality, I said to them, hiding behind Freddie at the in-laws' house, and they shook their heads vigorously with pale faces. Elliot looked genuinely disappointed. Hey Elliot, seems like our hospitality wasn't enough for Elizabeth and them. Is that so? Maybe we need to study more. Hearing this conversation, Elizabeth and Felicia began to tremble. After that, Elizabeth and Felicia stopped coming to our house. Even when I greet them in the neighborhood, "Hello," they run away immediately. Well, it's fine. Peaceful days returned. We remodeled their room into our son's room, and were even talking about having another child. Feeling a bit unfulfilled now the game is over, unnoticed Freddie stood beside me. The real ditzy ones never realize they're ditzy, do they? And muttered, "This time, give the baby to your brother. You can just have another one." After I announced my pregnancy to my parents, my mother uttered those unbelievable words. Brother Zach and his wife Rosie, who is infertile, demanded that I give up my child for adoption to them. My parents have always prioritized Zach over everything and neglected me. The hopeful future I had envisioned upon conceiving my first child turned into despair. My name is Olivia. I've been married to my husband Walt for 3 years. Our marriage is great, and we've been talking like we want a child soon. However, I've kept some distance from my family home. The reason lies with my parents and my brother Zach. At the family home, my parents, Zach, and his wife Rosie live together. Zach was a prodigy since childhood, and graduated from a prestigious university. He now secured a job at a major corporation. He is set to join and eventually take over our father's company. Our parents have adored him since he was young. In comparison, I wasn't very smart and had average looks, so I don't have many memories of being cherished by our parents. From a young age, I was always confused by the difference in treatment between Zach and me, often feeling down alone. Especially our mother, she was always with him, clearly showing he was her favorite. As for me, she mostly ignored me. When she did talk, it was usually to put me down. Perhaps influenced by our parents, Zach looked down on me too, so we never had a good sibling relationship. I felt I had no place at home and grew increasingly isolated. For those reasons, as soon as I graduated high school, I left home. My parents, seemingly uninterested in me, didn't say much when I announced my departure. In fact, they seemed almost pleased. After leaving, I got a job. And 3 years later, I married Walt, who was a classmate from high school. I was eager to build my own family and find my peace, away from the influence of my family. I only return home for Thanksgiving and Christmas. I'd rather not go, but my parents insist. They worry about appearances, and a daughter who never visits would look bad. They make a fuss if I don't go, so I endure it and visit twice a year. I went back grudgingly this Thanksgiving, but my mother was as cold as ever. "You and your husband are still so unimpressive. It ruins the festive mood." She started with her sarcasm right away. She called us back only to say such things. If she's going to be like this, she shouldn't bother calling. I thought, while fending off her sarcasm, but her barbs continued. "We're worried about you. You two live in poverty. We always think you'll come begging for money. My family home is quite wealthy. But since leaving, I've never asked for financial help and have been living off our own earnings with Walt. We manage a decent life and even celebrate their birthdays properly. There's no way we would do that." I immediately responded to her baseless accusation. However, she blurted out, "But you two are still low income, aren't you?" And then shifted her gaze to Walt beside me. "Walt, you're still working at that detective agency, right? How long do you plan to keep doing that shady business? Don't you feel embarrassed?" Indeed, Walt works as a detective, something she always ridicules. She sees detective work as shady and inferior to regular jobs. While Walt was explaining his job to make it understandable for her, Zach chimed in.
Mom, it's pointless to even listen to that. Detective work is shady, something nobody wants to get involved in. It's a low-level job done by people beneath us. The salary must be nothing compared to mine.
Flaunting his elitism, Zach looked down on detective work, just like her. That is something we've been hearing since we got married. Walt remained silent, but I felt angry that his job was being completely dismissed. Walt has been my confidant since our student days, so he understands what my family is like. Therefore, he always accompanies me when we have to visit my parents, not wanting to leave me alone. Even though he knows he'll be subjected to unpleasantness, I still feel terribly guilty. This visit, like others, ended up being an unpleasant experience. We resolved to live modestly together, not bothered by my family. Around that time, something wonderful happened. In our 3rd year of marriage, I finally became pregnant. I was overjoyed to be expecting our first child. Considering the way my parents always disparaged me, I felt I couldn't keep my pregnancy a secret from them. So, I visited my family home to announce it. It had been a while since I visited outside of Thanksgiving and Christmas, and my parents, Zach, and his wife Rosie were there. The response to my announcement was unexpected. Upon hearing my news, my mother suddenly raised her voice.
How dare you say such a thing in front of Zach?
I was surprised by her reaction. I hadn't expected congratulations, but this was unexpected. I was puzzled by her reference to Zach, and as I tilted my head in confusion, she revealed a shocking truth.
Zach can't have children, due to Rosie's constitution. How could you be so insensitive with your announcement?
I had no idea that they were infertile. Stunned by her unexpected words, I turned to look at the two. Zach looked uncomfortable and resigned. Meanwhile, Rosie was looking down solemnly.
You dare have a child before Zach. If it weren't for Rosie, this wouldn't have happened.
She sighed dramatically, glancing back and forth between Rosie and me. Observing that, Zach intervened. You know, Rosie feels guilty enough as it is. Don't be too hard on her, Mom. I was a bit surprised to hear he defend Rosie. From my occasional visits, I knew that his attitude towards Rosie was never that kind.
You're really kind, Zach. Rosie, if it weren't for being Zach's wife, you'd have been divorced long ago.
Hearing Zach's words, our mother glared at Rosie. Indeed, knowing them, they might have divorced Rosie immediately upon learning of her infertility. But perhaps Zach does have some affection for his wife. I pondered that as I watched he calm our mother down.
Well, I've made my announcement, so I'll be heading home.
The atmosphere had turned to blaming Rosie because of my announcement, so I decided to leave quickly. But then, my mother turned to me and said something unbelievable.
The baby you're having, give it to Zach.
What? I couldn't help but exclaim in shock at her outrageous suggestion. What does she mean, give my baby to Zach?
You can have another child since you're capable of having one. Since Rosie seems unable to. So giving that baby to Zach as an adopted child will bring peace to our family.
Peace? What is she talking about? How could they think of taking my baby for him, just because he can't have children? That's absurd and unjustifiable. When I insisted I would never agree to such a thing, my mother retorted,
Look, this is our long-awaited first grandchild. I'll let it grow around me. It's only right that we get to raise it. Zach will take over the company, so we will raise the baby.
She made such infuriating arguments, planning to take away my unborn child just to ensure a successor for our father's company. She talked about the process of adoption as if she had researched it, but I was too furious to listen. Seeing how irritated I was, Zach added something unbelievable. Well, since Rosie can't have children, it's good for her that you got pregnant at this time. At least you're finally contributing to this family. I couldn't believe it, but Zach seemed to agree with her. Even our father, who usually says nothing, nodded in agreement from behind them. It seemed the whole family was ready to claim my baby as their own. I couldn't believe how casually Zach spoke such terrible words to his own wife, acting as if nothing was wrong. Realizing that talking further was pointless, I decided to leave immediately. They only said,
Make sure to give us an answer next time you come.
And didn't even come out to see me off. Only Rosie, who must have been deeply hurt, silently saw me off. Even after returning home, my anger didn't subside. Far from celebrating my pregnancy, they made an unreasonable and absurd demand. Thinking about the future made me feel gloomy. They would probably keep pushing for adoption after the baby was born. Walt was also shocked when he heard the story from me after returning from work. Even he was at a loss for words. He understands my family, but the situation being beyond belief. A few days later, we had an unexpected visitor at home. "What brings you here so suddenly? It's rare to see you alone." It was Rosie. She looked haggard, her skin lacked luster, and her hair was disheveled. As she looked at us, her eyes brimmed with tears. "Olivia, I'm so sorry about the other day." She must be referring to when I went to announce my pregnancy. It wasn't her fault though. She seemed to feel guilty about the unreasonable demands made by my family. Then, she began to speak about something unexpected. "Actually, I have something I want to talk to you about." What could it be? I invited her in to hear her out. What she revealed was shocking, and my anger surged again. Trying hard to suppress her anger, she calmly told me a significant truth. Walt had been quietly listening to our conversation, but spoke up as our talk wound down, saying, "Actually," and revealed information to me. It was as astonishing and infuriating as Rosie's confession. Although Rosie had been listening to Walt's story, her teared up again. Having been informed of this significant fact by Walt and Rosie, I made a decision. To punish my parents and Zach. I swore to myself to settle past grievances and seek revenge. 3 months later, my belly beginning to show, I visited my family home with Walt. There were my parents, Zach, and Rosie. "You've decided to give the baby to Zach, right?" My mother asked, without even a greeting. It seemed she could only think of my baby being adopted by Zach. "I told you before, that's not going to happen." As I responded, my parents glared at me, as if they couldn't accept it. "No matter what you say, we're taking that baby. Stop being so stubborn." My mother appeared infuriated by my resistance. Feeling the same way, Zach and my father just glared at me without stopping her. "No matter how much you yell, I will never give the baby away. Instead, I came today to show something to you guys. Is that okay, Rosie?" I said, then made eye contact with Rosie. She nodded, still looking into my eyes. "Rosie intends to divorce Zach. And the reason is this." I pulled several photos from an envelope I had brought. That was my purpose for coming today. "These are..." Seeing the photos, Zach was speechless. The photos showed Zach kissing another woman and entering a hotel, undeniable evidence of his infidelity. Apparently shocked to have been photographed. He muttered just one sentence. "Who the hell took these photos?" Our parents, standing next to Zach, looked bewildered and alternated their gaze between him and me. They probably had no idea that he was having an affair. "It was Walt who took these." "What?" Yes, Walt had taken the photos. Walt had been silently watching that unfold, but began to explain how he came to take the photos. As a detective, he had incidentally seen Zach walking in downtown with an unknown woman while investigating a case. Out of curiosity, he conducted his own investigation and discovered that Zach was having an affair with that woman by pretending to be single. The decisive moment was captured in those photos. Zach seemed to think he had cleverly kept his affair secret. He was dumbfounded and at a loss for words. "Adultery is a valid reason for divorce. Make sure you pay Rosie a proper compensation." Amidst the tense atmosphere, Zach spoke. "I got stuck with a wife who's so incompetent. It's okay to have a little fun outside, right?" Rosie and I were speechless. Instead of apologizing, he blamed Rosie for his infidelity. "That's right, you're right. Rosie, it's because you're incompetent. To think you're acting all high and mighty about divorce." Our mother joined in, supporting his retort. They were desperately trying to blame Rosie, probably not wanting to be at a disadvantage themselves. I guess after I left, she must have been treated coldly by this family, just like I was. Thinking about it made me feel terribly sorry for her. Therefore, I decided to confront this family today. To save myself and Rosie, who had been neglected all that time. I pushed them further into a corner by blaming Rosie.
Zach, you made fun of Walt, but the investigative skills of a professional detective are extraordinary. As soon as he started investigating, evidence kept piling up. And then, we found out something shocking about your mistress.
Saying that, I saw my parents tensing up, wondering what shocking fact would come out next.
The woman you're having an affair with seems to be the daughter of a mafia boss.
As soon as I revealed it, Zach stiffened as if frozen. He must not have known that. Immediately, my mother screamed.
What? Is that true?
Her beloved son's mistress being the daughter of a mafia boss. Upon knowing the full extent of the shocking truth, she collapsed to the ground, covering her face with both hands. My father also pressed his head with both hands, as if he had heard something terrifying.
Zach, you were pretending to be single while dating her, correct?
Right, he had hidden his marital status to have an affair with the woman.
If she finds out that she's been deceived by a married man, what do you think will happen? What will her parents do when they learn their daughter was tricked by a married man? It would be better to tell them, right?
With my threatening words, now clearly realizing the identity of the woman he had been deceiving, Zach started to panic.
No! I didn't know either. I was deceived too.
Our parents, domineering just a moment ago, were now completely confused by this unforeseen revelation. Then, Rosie began to speak in front of the flustered.
You didn't just deceive your mistress, did you?
With her words, tension returned to the room. Then, she repeated what she had told me during her visit.
You are infertile, aren't you?
At that moment, Zach's face showed an "oh no" expression. Our parents looked at him in shock. They had blamed Rosie for not being able to have a baby, but the cause was actually Zach himself.
Did you know, Rosie?
That was all he could manage to say. The stunned parents were visibly shaken by the harsh impact. As they struggled to find their next words, Rosie delivered the final blow.
I found it accidentally while cleaning the room.
Rosie had stumbled upon his infertility diagnosis, hidden in his desk drawer. He couldn't admit that to his doting parents, so he kept that fact a secret and blamed infertility on Rosie. Believing his words, our parents had blamed Rosie. His protective comments about Rosie when I announced my pregnancy were probably due to his guilt over the issue.
Being blamed for not being able to have a baby, I suffered every day. And the talk turned to taking Olivia's child. I was just so sad.
Rosie declared that with a calm and unchanged expression. In contrast, my parents had just learned the shocking truth and were in a panic.
To think Zach will never have a baby, that's just...
My mother was despairing at the reality of not being able to hold his child. But in the next moment, she turned her hysterical hatred towards him.
You knew it was your fault, yet you pushed all the blame onto your wife. Did you cheat with other women just because you knew you were infertile? How could my son be so low? Oh dear, why did this happen?
She vented her frustration at him. Hearing it, he finally spoke and started his pitiful explanation.
I was shocked to find out I was infertile. I felt guilty for not giving you two a grandchild. When I found out Olivia was pregnant with a boy, it just seemed convenient.
It was a story that made me feel utterly contemptuous. Shaking off my anger, I delivered the final blow to the three.
Your selfish actions hurt Rosie and me. Besides, you have an affair with such a dangerous person. Zach, Mom, and Dad, you all better brace yourselves for what's coming. You guys have hurt so many people, now you'll get what you deserve.
Hearing my words, they started apologizing to us, their earlier bravado gone. Where did the momentum go when you asked me to give up my son? I looked at the three of them with disdain, like looking at trash. Beside me, Rosie said nothing and just stared ahead. Her silence spoke volumes about the depth of her sorrow. Zach and my parents were in for tough times ahead. The father of Zach's mistress learned about the affair, and the three of them were summoned and had to apologize repeatedly. Although they managed to break off the affair, Zach was forced to pay a hefty compensation because he had deceived the woman. The amount was staggering, and they learned the hard way the dangers of entanglement with such people. Because of that, my family home soon fell into disarray. My father was forced to resign as company president due to the public scandal. My mother became isolated, seen with disdain by the neighbors, and withdrew into herself. The relationship between my parents became hostile, constantly arguing over Zach. Zach was forced to leave his job after the scandal leaked to his company. As if to add insult to injury, his divorce with Rosie was finalized. Losing his job and having to pay compensation to Rosie, Zach was trapped in a life of relentless work. Around the time Rosie successfully left the family home, I gave birth to a healthy baby boy. Both the baby and I were in good health, and I savored the joy of welcoming a new life. The happy days for our family of 3 began. Then, Walt and I decided to cut all ties with my family. I had been torn about severing ties with such parents and brother, but that incident made me realize it was best for my son. Even without them, I have an irreplaceable family now. I've decided to cherish only my precious family from now on. I'm Vivian, 27 years old, and a pregnant woman about to give birth soon. My husband Bobby is 3 years older than me, a bit selfish, but I've always relied on him as I'm indecisive. However, being pregnant made me realize that boyfriends and husbands are different, and so are husbands and fathers. As a boyfriend, I appreciated him taking the lead, but as a married couple, it felt different. He just wouldn't listen to others. Whenever I gave an opinion, he would negate it, insisting he was always right. And now, as I'm trying to change into a mom, he still hasn't quite become a husband. He seems to hold the reins in our relationship. His values are, frankly, quite outdated. Sure, some couples work well that way. I've heard that was how it used to be. Husbands would earn a lot, allowing wives to focus solely on housework and childcare. But his salary isn't something to brag about. In fact, I was earning more before my maternity leave. I kept quiet about it though, to avoid upsetting him. He spends as much as he has, so we still keep our savings separate. I've been saving bit by bit, so I can manage the expenses even during maternity leave, something he doesn't seem to grasp. He probably thinks he's supporting me with his income alone. Likely, it's the influence of his parents. His mother has always been a housewife, with his father as the sole earner. That's fine. Both of his parents respect each other. I got that impression when I met them. A wife supporting her husband, and a husband supporting his wife, made it work. In our case, Bobby seems to look down on me. I don't mind him emulating Fael, but I wish he'd learn how to treat his wife as well. When Mael, Wallace, gave birth, Fael supported her as best he could and was proactive in childcare. Even at our first meeting, they seemed like a great couple, the kind I wanted us to be. With my due date being around Christmas, I wonder whether we should go to the in-laws' house. Then, an incident occurred at the end of the year, just before giving birth. In the afternoon, Bobby called from work.
Today's the last day of work before the holiday, so after I'm done, my colleagues will come over for drinks. Wait a minute, my due date is soon, right? You can't predict when the baby will come, at least go out to drink somewhere else.
Faced with this unbelievable suggestion, I was at a loss for words.
What? Are you trying to annoy me? I've already told my colleagues. Don't embarrass me. You always said, don't bring anyone over at the last minute. I told you first thing in the morning. Mom said she gave birth to me 2 days after her due date, and my sister was born a week late. So, a due date is just a guideline. That varies from person to person. Sure, a due date is just a prediction, but we need to be cautious around that time.
That's exactly what Wallace said when I announced my pregnancy. But she also said, it would be so much easier if babies would just listen to us before they're born. Bobby, apparently not paying attention to that, continued after a click of his tongue.
So, I'll stay home when the due date comes. Don't use pregnancy as an excuse to tie me down. I didn't see your messages today, so clean the house by the time I get back. It was messy when I left this morning. Don't embarrass me, and prepare food and drinks, okay? Remember to keep your promises. Wait, I'm pregnant. I can't even clean up. Remember I asked you to do it yesterday? The mess was because you didn't clean up.
He seemed to recall and then got angry.
You're a housewife, right? You're being supported, so don't make me do housework. Just do it already.
Saying that, he hung up. The mess he was referring to was actually made by him yesterday. He had brought colleagues home just before returning once before. I did ask him to inform me in the morning, but I never expected him to do this, especially not so close to the due date. My belly weighs about 3 kilos now, putting pressure on my organs. You wouldn't understand unless you've been through it. I didn't understand until I got pregnant. My sister-in-law, who's already had a baby, keeps in touch frequently. I feel blessed to share these hardships with her. Wallace reminisces about the past and brings things I need, and Fael helps out too. The in-laws' house is really nice. The baby in my belly, perhaps worried about me, kicks me repeatedly. It felt like a sign not to comply with his demands. So, I called his office. The person who answered passed the call to him. Hello, Bobby? It's impossible today. My belly's been kicked so much, I just can't move.
What? Don't call for something like that. I'll drink at a colleague's place then. Don't call the office again. It's embarrassing, cut it out. At least clean up. If you don't, it's divorce, understand?
All I could hear was the cold electronic tone in my ear. I couldn't believe he was this terrible. Lately, he has been using divorce as a threat for everything. He thinks I'm afraid of divorce now that we have a baby. He uses it to make me anxious. According to him, it's discipline. The only reasons I haven't divorced him are the possibility of change after the baby's birth and the in-laws' presence. How can someone from such a good family turn out like this? Knowing Sael, it's definitely not the parents-in-law's upbringing. It must be his friend's influence. At our wedding, one of his friends said, "Keep your wife in check." After that, he started acting more arrogantly towards me. Since the wedding, he has been acting even more bossy towards me. Just then, the phone rang at the perfect time, and I answered it.
Hello, Vivian, how are you feeling?
Wallace, it's not my body, it's my mood that's terrible. Wallace sounded a bit panicked over the phone.
The due date is Christmas, right? You might feel like you have a lot to do, but prioritize your baby and yourself first.
Thank you. But the problem isn't that. I'm sorry to say, but I might end up divorcing. I don't want to part from you guys, but I've reached my limit with this incident. I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. Wallace sounded frantic on the other end.
What happened all of a sudden? Can you explain?
Bobby called earlier, saying he's bringing colleagues home tonight. He told me to clean up and buy drinks and prepare. If I can't do that, he said it's divorce. So, I guess there's no other choice but to divorce. I've been threatened like this for a while now. Even the usually cheerful Wallace was silent, listening.
I'm sorry I didn't notice. Bobby told me you were going to give birth near your parents' home.
What? I'm not at my parents', I'm at our house. I didn't understand why he would lie about that, but her response clarified it.
That's why I've been giving him money every day, as he said he could eat properly. I should have taught him housework to reduce your burden. That's my responsibility too.
No, she did teach him. It's clear from how Sael is. He just chose to escape. Even Fael does the household himself. Really? I didn't know that. I'm sorry, I almost became an ungrateful wife without knowing the situation.
No, it's our fault too. If you're not at your parents', we're neglectful parents. We should have helped more. When he gets drunk, he won't get away with it. I'll give him a piece of my mind next time.
I was relieved to have a mother-in-law who would stand up for her son's wife like this. Thank you. I'm really happy I can rely on you, Wallace. You're like a real mom to me now. I lost my mother early, so her friendliness meant a lot to me.
I'm feeling okay for now, so I'll try to clean up. I'll order the drinks for delivery and take a break once it's done. Don't push yourself too hard. If anything happens, I'll come right away.
After I finished cleaning and was taking a break, he came back home. The party was mostly his colleagues being considerate, but a drunk Bobby started giving orders.
Hey, we're out of drinks, bring some more.
As he said this, a colleague went to get them, but that only made him angrier. Don't use my colleague, you've embarrassed me again. His colleagues, looking disdainful, soon said they had to leave. Fortunately, it was the holiday season, so there were plenty of excuses. As they left, he passed out, and I saw them out. One of them apologized profusely as they were leaving.
We heard you were pregnant, but didn't expect you to be at home. Please take care of yourself.
And stopped me as I tried to follow them to the door. After that, I don't remember much for a while. Later, Wallace told me she couldn't get through on the phone and found me unconscious when she arrived. She had called an ambulance in a hurry. I regained consciousness on a hospital bed. Still feeling weak, I decided to keep my eyes closed and rest a bit. Just then, the door to the hospital room opened. What the hell, you're sleeping soundly. I rushed here for nothing. The house is still a mess, nobody's there, and I get a message to come to this hospital? You've embarrassed me in front of my colleagues. It's definitely divorce now. In fact, wake up already, I need you to sign the divorce papers. The juniors were disgusted with you. A wife who can't even prepare properly, maybe I should divorce you quickly without you noticing the affair. That way, I can marry my girlfriend. No alimony, huh? Am I a genius or what? No, you're an idiot, I wanted to shout, but I had to pretend not to notice and gather evidence. But how? Just then, Bobby's mobile phone chimed with a notification. He looked puzzled. Why am I getting a message from Vivian? What? I'm keeping Vivian's phone? Take care of your wife if you want it back? Who is this, some creepy person? Take care of my wife, like I don't need her. Thinking I was unconscious, he kept talking. Ever since getting pregnant, she's gotten lazy with housework, doesn't care about her appearance, and just keeps getting fatter. That's natural, I thought, I'm pregnant with your baby. I need nutrition for two. The doctor even said my weight gain was appropriate. He probably doesn't know that. If only my mobile phone was nearby, I could have recorded this. And to think he's having an affair too. His morals are skewed, but so is that woman. Would you be able to forgive yourself if you were in the same position? Is it even right to engage in adultery with a straight face when your beloved's baby is about to be born? In the first place, is it right to commit adultery? Hey, is the person messaging actually her affair partner? That would make sense, huh? So she having an affair too? What ridiculous reasoning. Does he have the brain of an elementary school detective? People who cheat always think their partner is doing the same. Bobby must know he's in the wrong. There's only one truth, and no justification for infidelity. Then his phone rang again. Huh? I'm not the affair partner? Is this guy psychic? Then who is it? Strangers shouldn't meddle in our business. Who's a stranger? This is a family matter. The door opened, and Wallace barged in. What? Why's Mom here? Why wouldn't I be? I sent the message. Bobby seemed flustered by this unexpected visitor. No way, you came all the way from home? I didn't think you would be here, let alone have Vivian's phone. Don't tell me, Mom, you've been brainwashed with lies to excuse her laziness, right? She began to speak quietly, regretting what he had done. I've been listening to everything you've said since entering this room, using the mobile phone there. He looked where she was pointing and seemed shocked. She had hidden her phone in the gap of my bed and connected a call to my phone. The recording function was also used, so the affair was fully exposed. The worst part is, you neglected Vivian, who's risking her life to give birth to your baby, to mess around. You don't deserve to be a dad. It was an impulse. Vivian hadn't been paying attention to me for a while. Just then, one of my junior female colleagues was, well, giving me attention. Hearing those words, I reached my limit and sat up, shouting, "Don't joke with me. I'm trying to give birth with all my might. And you play around on a whim?" He, finding no words to reply, looked down in silence. "You have acted despicably. If you mention divorce, I have no choice but to accept it. When it happens, I'll be on her side. I almost died giving birth to you. I've told you this before. Your sister can't forgive your actions as a woman either. She just gave birth recently too." He made a face as if to say, crap. Doesn't he understand that when having an affair?
"But look, I rushed here as soon as she woke up. The affair was a momentary lapse. I swear I won't do it again. I really wasn't myself. I won't invite work colleagues home anymore. I'll end the affair and give all my salary to you. Please, consider this my last chance."
Saying this, he kept apologizing. I smiled and called out to him, "Bobby." Hearing my voice, he looked at me, as if relieved of his guilt. "Thank you, Vivian. I'll really change."
"What are you misunderstanding? This was your last chance."
Understanding my words, his face shifted from relief to despair.
"By the way, Dad, me, and your sister haven't forgiven you. Dad even said, don't come home even if you divorce. Basically, you're disowned. I think that's only fair." "No way, give me a break. Where am I supposed to go?"
He grasped at her feet as if begging.
"Bobby, you neglected your wife who's about to give birth, had an affair, invited colleagues home, and sent her to the grocery store. That's 2 strikes for me and Dad. So there's still..."
Before he could finish, I spoke.
No. Sister-in-law makes it 3 strikes, and I'm the game set. We'll divorce once the baby is born. As for the broken promise, make sure you pay alimony and child support as a dad. I need to be a father to the baby. Don't divorce me. I'll give you all my money. I'll lose my position at work."
Even now, he seemed more concerned about saving face.
"That's fine. Your work colleagues have already contacted me while you were on your way here. Remember when you invited them home without notice and gave out my contact? Someone I didn't recognize called, saying they were supposed to come today. I didn't know the situation, thought your wife went back to her parents. It'll probably be gossip after the holiday season. Please, explain to them it's a misunderstanding."
Still seeking self-preservation, he didn't seem to care about me.
"Misunderstanding? It's the truth. The baby will be raised by me, my parents, and your family. We all agreed unanimously. Buy now, and make sure you keep your promises this time."
This was what Bobby had told me over the phone.
"Her parents, your dad and sister are coming soon. Take responsibility for your actions. We'll apologize for our son's misconduct at the end. Then we'll make sure she and the baby don't suffer. We won't be lenient. We'll front the money, but this isn't for you, it's for her. Work hard at Dad's friend's workplace to pay it back. You won't be comfortable at your current job anyway. You have no choice."
"Fine, I'll figure out the money. I'll remarry my girlfriend. She loves me. She's making money online streaming, something about relationship advice. Love Me channel, that's it. I'll join her and make a fortune. Then I'll be a billionaire. Planning all alone, how foolish."
"Well, good luck with that, you're a fool till the end. Wallace, it's fine. Bye now."
Bobby left cheerfully, but with trembling feet. He fled before Fael and Sael arrived. The next day, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. I had a lawyer handle the alimony and child support claims. Of course, I claimed from his girlfriend too. I continued interacting with my ex-husband's parents, and after settling into motherhood, I received alimony from Bobby. He refused the advance from FIL and borrowed from consumer finance. And it seems, from shady places too. He thought he could repay quickly with his girlfriend's earnings. But reality isn't so sweet. His girlfriend left her job after their relationship became known at the company, making things awkward. The incident of him drinking at home spread around his company, and he quit. His last hope, the streaming, leaked somewhere, and the channel disappeared due to the affair despite being about relationship advice. Doing bad things doesn't pay off. Who leaked it? Sale was giving a thumbs up, but it must be my imagination. If he hadn't mentioned the channel name, maybe it wouldn't have gone this far. Is now missing. My daughter and I will surely be lovingly raised by two wonderful families.
Happy birthday! Make sure you eat it all.
What was presented in front of me was a surprise birthday cake made by my mother-in-law, Kyla. It was extravagantly topped with whipped cream, so that the strawberries were buried under a mountain of it. The moment I saw it, I caught my breath.
I've mentioned I'm allergic to dairy, haven't I? Oh, did you? It's fine. Your body will get used to it if you eat it. It's life-threatening for me. Haven't you been intentionally using allergens in your cooking?
Stop complaining. Be grateful for what I've prepared. Kyla had always found reasons to summon my husband Alan and me to her house, eager to feed us her home cooking. However, the dishes she prepared were invariably made with dairy products, which I couldn't consume. Unable to eat much, I sipped tea while Kyla and Alan dined merrily, a situation that left me feeling frustrated. Yet, I endured without a frown. However, it was my birthday party she hosted that would lead to Kyla's misfortune. I'm Tiana, 30 years old. After dating for 2 years, Alan and I got married this summer. We had lived together for a year before our marriage, so life as newlyweds was not much different than before. But one thing had been bothering me since we started dating: Kyla's presence. She doted on her son Alan and seemed to want to be near him at all times. She frequently barged into our apartment where we lived together. If the relationship were good, it might have been natural to accept her, but our relationship was far from amicable. She always focused on Alan, interrupting my words and enjoying conversations with her son. Having never interacted with the parents of anyone I dated before, I questioned her behavior, thinking it was just how things were. But there were things that struck me as odd. Tiana, let's go to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park for the long weekend next month.
That sounds great. The foliage should be beautiful, and it's been a while since we last visited. That sounds fun. I want to come too.
Then let's go, the three of us. Mom and us. Tiana, that's okay with you, right? Yeah, sure.
Tiana, you're so kind. We need to pull it down on the calendar as soon as we get home.
In this way, the intrusive Kyla would try to tag along on our trips. She suggested numerous hotels to stay at, and before I knew it, she and Alan were making plans together. Once the plan was set, Tiana, could you handle the bookings? She'd say, leaving the rest of the arrangements to me. And when it was time to depart for the trip, she wouldn't even take out her wallet for anything, from the travel expenses to meals and even souvenirs. At that time, Alan and I weren't officially married yet. Can we split the cost? I'd do the same for your parents if they needed anything. When he said that, I couldn't object strongly, so I had no choice but to agree and pay. Despite the frustrations with Kyla, Alan was always kind to me, and we spent peaceful times together when it was just the two of us. So, when he proposed, I happily decided to marry him. However, even after our marriage, Kyla's behavior was something I couldn't ignore. On our days off, as we relaxed at home, Alan's mobile phone would ring.
Oh, Mom.
It's you. Did you make too much food again? Okay, I'll ask Tiana. Putting the call on hold, Alan would ask me. Mom's made too much for dinner, she's asking if we want to come. That's okay, right? Again? We just went through the same routine 3 days ago, visiting Kyla's house. And we've already been over there 8 times this month.
Come on. It'll save you the trouble of cooking. I'll let her know we're coming. Wait. I didn't agree to this. I've already told her and hung up. Let's get ready and leave once you've changed. Invitations to dinner from Kyla were unnervingly frequent. In the past, she ran a cooking class and was a first-class cook, and even now, being alone after father-in-law passed away, she tended to make lavish feasts. Still, having to share a meal with her nearly half of the month was stressful, and when I tried to discuss it with Alan, Mom must be lonely by herself. Let's just keep her company for meals. He'd brush it off lightly. But when he saw I wasn't convinced, he looked into my eyes and spoke gently. Tiana, it must be hard preparing meals every day, especially with your busy job. I want you to relax a bit. Don't worry about it. All right, thank you. I knew Alan genuinely cared for me. However, my biggest concern was that the meals always included dairy products, which I'm allergic to. I've been allergic to dairy since childhood, unable to ingest milk, butter, or even bread. Accidental consumption would lead to nausea, vomiting, and abdominal pain. Kyla's home-cooked meals were full of dairy, including stews, cream pasta, and homemade bread with plenty of milk. It seemed intentional. Tiana, you're not eating anything. Don't you like my cooking? It's not that. I have a dairy allergy, as I've mentioned before. Could that be? Well, it's okay, you'll get used to it if you introduce it to your body slowly. Alan, there's more, so don't hold back and eat plenty. This pasta is awesome as always. Tiana, you should eat too. Yeah. Do these two not understand the severity of an allergy, persistently urging me to eat? However, unable to eat, I would often just sip the tea served, distracting myself from the hunger. Meanwhile, Kyla would chat happily with Alan, enjoying the meal with a beaming smile. Such incidents were common, causing me to fret over her overbearing attitude towards Alan and her problematic cooking. Once, unable to hold back, I brought this up with Alan. Do you think Kyla is deliberately making dishes I can't eat? That's impossible. She went through the trouble of making it, and I think it's a problem that you don't eat, Tiana. Don't say that. You understand my allergy issue. Yes, but remember, you've accidentally eaten allergens in food other than Mom's cooking before? It never led to anything serious, so don't overthink it. That may be true, but indeed, I've unintentionally eaten dairy when dining out. Dairy is so pervasive in dishes that sometimes it's unavoidable. Yet, I couldn't help but feel malice in Kyla's cooking. Once, she served fried chicken for dinner, and thinking it was safe, I ate it, only to find out the batter contained dairy. Soon after, I was overwhelmed with vomiting and severe abdominal pain, becoming unable to leave the bathroom. Are you complaining about my cooking that much? There's a limit to sarcasm. Kyla, showing her anger, confronted me as I finally emerged from the bathroom. It's not that. I think there was dairy in the batter of the fried chicken. It made me sick. The way you say it sounds like I did it on purpose. Alan grew up on my cooking. If you can't stand it, you won't get along with him in the future. If you're going to break up, better do it sooner than later. That's a different issue. No. Even if we have grandchildren in the future, they won't grow up healthy because of your picky eating. I wanted to seek Alan's help, but he wasn't there as he was taking a shower. You should go home first. I'll tell Alan you felt sick and sent you home. That day, I went home alone, and for weeks after, the persistent invitations from Kyla ceased completely. If it meant keeping some distance, I didn't mind her disliking me. Then, a month before my birthday, Alan made a suggestion. It's Tiana's first birthday since we got married. How about we go to a hot spring? That's wonderful. Of course, I'll go. Look forward to it. The trip is my gift to you. Okay. Thank you, as always. What's this all of a sudden? I'll make it luxurious since it's a special occasion. I was overjoyed by Alan's sentiment. The reservations were made without a hitch, and all that was left was the day of the trip. However,
2 days before the trip, I received a call from Kyla.
Tiana. It's been a while. It's unusual for you, Kyla, to contact me. What a sarcastic tone. I'm calling to host a birthday party for you.
What?
It's your birthday in 2 days, right? Melissa is coming back that day. How about we all have dinner together?
Melissa is Alan's sister, currently living far away due to her job transfer. I met her for the first time at my wedding, but we haven't seen each other since. She was refreshingly bright, and just from one glance, I could tell she was a good person and I wanted to talk to her more. However, Alan had planned a trip for my birthday.
Can I confirm with Alan before answering?
He'll say yes.
You're the star, so I'll wait especially for you. Make sure to reply by tomorrow.
After her purpose was served, Kyla unilaterally ended the call.
I have a bad feeling about this.
Despite my intuition, I had to check with Alan, so I brought up the birthday party when he got home.
Melissa is coming back.
That's great, let's go.
But what about our trip? I was really looking forward to it.
We can go anytime.
But things haven't been going well with Kyla recently, and I'm not really feeling up to it. Mom wants to get closer to you, Tiana. She wouldn't host a birthday party otherwise. It's a good opportunity to accept her invitation.
All right.
I understand.
Disappointed to cancel the trip, I decided to attend the birthday party hosted by Kyla. On the day of my birthday, dressed a bit more fashionably, I went to her house, where a lot of homemade dishes were already laid out on the table. My sister-in-law Melissa was also busy setting plates and preparing drinks.
Melissa, it's been a long time. Tiana, I'm so happy to see you. Happy birthday. Let's talk a lot today.
Just like the first time we met, she was indeed a bright and charming woman. Though things weren't going well with Kyla, I felt that I could have a good relationship with Melissa.
Now that everyone is here, shall we start? Tiana, happy birthday.
We all held our glasses and toasted. It was heartwarming to receive so many well wishes.
Tiana, eat as much as you like today. But we also have a cake, so don't overdo it and save some room. Mom, isn't it a bit much? It's Tiana's special birthday, of course.
Seeing her smiling more than usual, I felt somewhat relieved. The homemade dishes lined up before me were extravagant, from fried chicken to potato salad, roast beef, and even a scattered sushi, quite a feast. However, I couldn't help but feel that some of these might contain allergens, and once again, I couldn't bring myself to eat much. Still, reuniting with my sister-in-law and her husband made for lively conversations and an enjoyable time. Before I knew it, the sun had set, and it was 7 p.m. Then Kyla stood up and headed towards the kitchen. After a while, the lights suddenly went out, and Kyla approached with a cake, its candles lit. Everyone naturally started singing happy birthday in unison. Despite my age, I was genuinely delighted, bashfully clapping and savoring the joy.
Tiana, please blow out the candles.
All right. After I blew them out, Alan turned the lights back on. Then the cake became clearly visible, and I exclaimed,
"Is this?"
Kyla's homemade cake was extravagantly frosted with whipped cream, and as if that wasn't enough, more whipped cream was piped on top, concealing the strawberries entirely.
Happy birthday! Make sure you eat it all.
Unconcerned about my grimace, Kyla spoke with a direct gaze and a smile. The situation was so obviously intentional that I couldn't hide my irritation.
This cake. I baked the sponge myself, you know? Took quite some time, so it must be delicious. I'll cut and serve it now.
Before I could respond, she was about to forcefully plate it. But this was a precious moment, and I decided it was time to be straightforward. As I clenched my fists and was about to speak, an unexpected person addressed Kyla.
Tiana's allergic to dairy, right?
Melissa, who had been smiling until then, asked Kyla sharply, her expression now stern.
Was she? Mom, you told me over the phone before. Do you understand how dangerous allergies are? They can be fatal.
Really?
Didn't you realize the severity, Alan? There are many people in the world who die from eating allergens. You can't take this lightly.
I was touched that Melissa came to my rescue when I was in trouble. And I was overwhelmed with gratitude for her conveying the dangers of allergies.
That varies from person to person. Tiana said she can eat a little without any issues. I never said that. In fact, I've always stated I can't eat it. Don't lie.
Fine.
Everyone else can share the cake. If you don't like it, just watch enviously.
Even after all this, Kyla refused to understand, and I was truly infuriated. Regardless, her plan was either to make me sick from eating the cake or to isolate me for not eating it. I was ready to retaliate forcefully, but once again, the situation took an unexpected turn.
Mom, enough already. Did you even listen to her?
What's gotten into you, Alan?
This is nothing new. Don't joke around. This is life-threatening. Are you saying it's okay if Tiana dies?
That's not what I mean. She's been fine eating it before.
So don't be so harsh. Let's serve Alan first. Stop it. I don't want to eat a cake with malice. Tiana, I'm sorry. I should have understood your allergy better.
It's okay. I appreciate you understanding. Kyla, please take the cake away. Then, she made an outrageous statement, further intensifying the tension in the room.
If you're going to be like that, I'll give up on making you eat it. Instead, how about we do a face cake? You know, like comedians do on variety shows, burying their face in the cake for a laugh.
In my shock, I couldn't immediately respond, but what she said next was even worse.
If it's just on your face, it won't be life-threatening, right? How about we take a group photo with it? It will make a wonderful memory.
That's not funny. Stop making a mockery of me. What's wrong?
I'm just making a suggestion. Tiana, you never seem to go along with everyone else. Why would you use an allergen I can't eat in the first place? You've been doing this on purpose all this time, haven't you?
So what? What's wrong with that?
Alan loves stew and cream pasta. With such picky eating, how can my son be happy with you, Tiana? It's boring if you won't eat the food I make, and I'm at my limit with you. He understands my allergy and married me. It's not the same as being picky. You've been causing me trouble all this time, and I won't forgive you for that. Make a fuss if you want. If you don't like it, you can leave.
Facing her unrepentant attitude, I delivered a decisive blow.
Understood. I'll sever ties with you. I won't associate with you from now on. That's fine by me. It's actually a relief. I'm cutting ties with you too. Alan, what are you saying? I accepted the birthday party because I thought it was a kind gesture. I didn't give you money for the ingredients just so you could harass her. Sorry. So, stop being angry, will you? It's too late. I regret sending money every month to make your life a bit easier. I always thought the dinner invitations were a thank you for the living expenses, not to trouble her. I really misjudged you.
In fact, ever since father-in-law passed away, he had been giving her $500 every month. This was out of gratitude for raising him and because she claimed the Social Security survivor benefits weren't enough. Feeling that his goodwill had been trampled on, he was furious.
I have no intention of seeing my mother again. Tiana, let's go home.
He immediately stood up, grabbed his bag, and headed to the entrance. As I picked up my things and was about to leave, Kyla clung to me.
I'm really sorry. Please stop, Alan, please.
Let me go.
It's too late for apologies. What you did to me constitutes assault. Be grateful I'm not pressing charges. Wait. My comfort is spending time with him.
Ignoring Kyla's tearful pleas, I left the house. Walking home together, he apologized again.
Tiana, I'm really sorry. I'll be more careful from now on.
In the days that followed, both Alan and I received numerous calls from Kyla on our mobile phones. We ignored the dozens of calls, and eventually, they stopped. The birthday incident brought Melissa and me closer, and we started to communicate frequently. I apologized for leaving early that day. Leaving was the right choice. I would have done the same. She kindly reassured me, a gentle sister-in-law. She was also appalled by Kyla's behavior and had distanced herself. Kyla, abandoned by her beloved children and left lonely, lost the energy to cook her favorite dishes and resorted to eating ready-made meals. Spending her twilight years in darkness and solitude was her own fault. Meanwhile, without Kyla's interference, my husband and I finally had time to ourselves. He rebooked the birthday trip he had canceled, and we created happy memories. We intend to continue enjoying our life together as a loving couple.